All righty, thank you. We'll move ahead with our meeting, call it to order here on Tuesday, February 18, 2020, around 7 o'clock. And our first matter is actually a legal matter, and it's really not on the agenda, but it's for you folks, and this is with regard to the temporary COs. So, Les, perhaps you can explain to us, we have a letter here on the dais that we received from the attorneys for the applicant, and if you could bring us up to speed and what we need to do.
Certainly. Just by way of background, by resolution on November 19th of 2019, the Planning Board and also the Town Board on the same night authorized the building inspector to issue or renew retail TCOs at Chapel Crossing through February 29th of 2020, notwithstanding that all the conditions of the Planning Board's original retail site plan resolution have not been satisfied. At the time of that resolution, there was an intent to remove the Planning Board and the Town Board for having to approve further extensions of the February 29th date once the Route 117 road work was completed. However, the actual resolutions that were adopted by the Town Board and the Planning Board did not memorialize that intent. Instead, only the issuance of new TCOs for the unopened retail uses at the time were linked to the completion of the road improvements. Against this background, the applicant has submitted a letter to the Town Board and the Planning Board dated February 18th of 2020 requesting an extension of the February 29th, 2020 date to May 31, 2020. Upon consultation with Town Council, it is my recommendation that this evening the Planning Board tentatively approve the applicant's requested extension to May 31, 2020, or such other date as the Town Board may subsequently approve in response to the applicant's request. This will avoid a potential gap in the building inspector's authority to extend or renew TCOs for Chappaqua Crossing retail uses. At a Planning Board meeting in March, you will be presented with a written resolution which conforms to the action taken by the Town Board in response to the applicant's request. It is anticipated that the Town Board will consider eliminating any deadline date, thus restoring to the building inspector the authority to renew or extend the Chappaqua Crossing retail use TCOs. Remaining unchanged will be the Planning Board's retail resolutions prohibition on the issuance of permanent COs prior to the completion of all conditions of the Planning Board's retail resolutions.
Okay, so in short, even when we tried to extricate ourselves, we did not.
That's correct.
Okay. So, do we have a resolution that we should adopt for that, as you recommend?
There's no written resolution.
Right.
And I suggest that you adopt a resolution orally, tentatively approving the applicant's requested extension to May 31, 2020, or such other date as the Town Board may subsequently approve in response to the applicant's request. Okay. And then when we come in March with the actual resolution, we'll know what the terms are, and then you can consider the whole thing.
Right.
And the Town Board can take the May 31st date and make it August, or they can make it April?
Or they could just eliminate the date entirely. Yes.
Okay.
And we don't, usually they go first, but not, given that the letter came in today, we're going first. So that's kind of just being a practical way to address it.
And again, just to clean up the potential gap, so it's, I think it's ministerial.
Yes.
Yeah, so I need a motion.
Motion?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now we move to our first item. This is the application of SG Chappaqua A&B LLC, and this is for the master subdivision plan. This is a discussion of a preliminary subdivision application, 480 Bedford Road.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Andrew Tung on behalf of Chappaqua Crossing. With me tonight, Dave Walsh from Summit Development, James Fitzpatrick and Greg Otis from Toll Brothers, and Matt Steinberg from my office. This is it's called a preliminary plat, but in fact we've been working on it quite some time. This formalizes the revised lines for the two MFPD, or rather PDCP districts on the site as they were amended by the Town Board by resolution December. Also, we seek to formalize the lot around the 200 building and the auditorium. The plat, which you see before you and which was submitted, satisfies or will satisfy all the requirements of the subdivision code. But as your town planner pointed out, it's not very informative in terms of what was there before and what was there, what we're looking to do now. So we prepared two diagrams, if you will, to explain that a little more readily. So this is the existing lot lines and the existing zoning districts on the site. There are 5 parcels within the main campus of Reader's Digest. The primary parcel, 113.7 acres, and the 4 single-family lots along Roaring Brook Road, which average about 1 acre each. So that's the existing parcels that are part of the subdivision. Readers and now Summit do own a separate parcel on the southwest side of Roaring Brook Road that is not part of this subdivision. The zoning shown in red, both lines and labels, reflect the overlay districts that were confirmed by the town board in December. Slight changes to both the OPROD, the retail overlay, and the MFPD for the East Village. The balance of the zoning remains as it has been prior to the purchase. BRO 20 for the office, a small area of R1A at the very north end, R1A for the what remains of the 4 single-family lots, and a small piece of BRO 20 along Roaring Brook Road.
What's the area of the R1A, that residual in the northern corner?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's 20-something acres, I think 30 acres.
Okay.
Or 12.3.
It had 1 digit right.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the existing condition today. 5 lots, now proposed to become 6 lots. The 6 lots we name not with lot and block numbers, but with parcels A through F. Parcel A is the 200 building, just the land immediately surrounding the 200 building under its footprint, 0.78 acres.
It's all this, right?
No, it's just to the left of, right there,
this?
right there.
Just the
right?
box.
The footprint of the 200 building.
Oh, really? Okay. I couldn't read
Yes.
that. Okay.
So that gets transferred to the owner of the 200 building, or Walter Bolter.
Yeah.
Parcel B is the remaining office parcel, which consists of the balance of the office buildings 200 through 600, the parking lots to its east and north, and that R1A land to the very north.
So this will be included?
Yes, it is included, yes, in the parcel B.
And so that line is just the old line, right?
That's a zoning line.
Okay,
So the red lines are zoning, the black lines are property.
our property. So then does this, just out of curiosity, is this left over from something?
That's where the line was when we came to the site for some unknown reason.
And does that little leg preclude the developer from doing anything in the future?
Well, we've never sought to do anything in the R1A
Okay.
zone and don't anticipate doing so.
Not
Because
to say that they won't do something in the future.
right. We do not have any plans today.
Just as a point of information, I know you
Yes.
came before the town board last week, the other day,
Yes.
and you spoke about a new applicant, Terrain, potential applicant. Where would that be located?
That would be located, the Terrain is a nursery cafe space
Right.
that sell a lot of plants. They would be looking to reuse the auto center building in the north, which is in the middle of that gray area.
Here?
I can borrow, if I may borrow.
Yeah, please.
So you said nursery cafe, meaning they have a garden nursery and then a coffee shop?
Yes, yes, so you can eat amongst the plants.
Starbucks is gonna love that.
Yeah. Well, yes. So that building is in here. It's, was to be taken down, but in the Terrain undertaking, they like the character of that building. They have adapted other buildings for reuse for that purpose.
Right.
That's where that would be.
Okay.
It would remain within the BRO 20.
Right,
zone.
okay, great.
If that was
Thanks,
your
Andy.
question.
I was just trying to get our fix on
Does
that.
that square footage go against the retail square footage?
Well, it
Or is
would
that
be,
considered
it would require a number of zoning amendments.
Oh, over and above, okay.
So that's parcel B. Parcel C is the retail parcel in the southern portion of the site, coterminous with the OPROD zoning line, plus the small piece of BRO 20 along Roaring Road.
This?
Yes, that's in the retail parcel,
Right.
or in parcel C, rather. Parcel D is the East Village. Its line is also coterminous with the MFPD as amended by the town board, and also includes parcel E, which is the auditorium parcel. Parcel F then finally is what remains of the 4 single-family lots on Roaringbrook Road. That will be an open space parcel. Those buildings have been taken down, those houses have been removed. Open space parcel either to be conserved as part of this property or given to the town. I think that's still under discussion, but it will remain as open space. So it's been set aside as a separate parcel. So those are the 6 parcels. So we're moving from 5 parcels to 6 parcels with changes in lines and zoning. The zoning on this diagram is the same as the existing zoning on the prior diagram because that zoning now reflects the town board changes from December.
And this has nothing to do with it, it's just there for
Right.
FYI?
Just
Because
for
the
your information,
application-
as also owned by Summit.
And Andy, you'll be submitting updated plans with this information?
Yes, we'll be submitting these diagrams. Matt has copies of these diagrams for the planning board tonight, just for your
We
information.
need to check
That'll be
them
a
in.
separate, that'll be a separate map. That's not gonna be on the subdivision map, is it?
All this information is on the subdivision map. It's hidden, so this is a diagram just to make it clearer
Pull
what's
it out.
existing and proposed.
You can show the zoning districts on the subdivision?
No, the zoning districts won't show, so there is a little bit of added information.
Quite busy if you start showing.
Yes, no,
You won't
we
really see
would
it.
not normally show a zoning district on that, because it could change.
As it often does in
How-
this instance.
I'm curious, when you get here in these alleys here, how wide are those alleys, 20 feet?
Those are, I don't know the exact dimension today. There's a street in between them, so so the street is 20 feet wide, so
The street
they're
is 20
wider.
foot wide, okay.
They're wider. And we widened those, I think, to a minimum of, I think, somewhere in response to the fire department, we widened them.
I remember that, and this road here is 24 or something like
Yes,
that, bigger.
yes. But
And
that's
so-
not part of this subdivision today.
I know, but since it's up, I thought I'd ask a question, because what's on this drawing are the utility easements. And I
Yes.
just want to make sure that 20 feet is available, because it looks like the alleys and the roads align with the drawing on the utility easements, but I think it would be nice if there was some way to sort of just sketch in blocks of houses, on it.
Well, on the subdivision plat, you don't really want to do that. That'll appear on the East Village subdivision plat that goes to
Okay.
92 lots.
But we have everybody's concurrence then that that's reasonable from the applicant's point of
So-
view, that it fits perfectly.
So I think that, Andy, what we had discussed previously is that additional information needs to be submitted along with the subdivision map to provide the context and the verification for the lines that you wish to be formalized through the subdivision. So maybe the the utilities and whatnot that Mr. Brownell is speaking of can be incorporated into another map or in addition to the subdivision map.
We could show them for
An overlay.
information, sure.
An overlay. Okay.
And this new map does reflect the change, I think, that the town board adopted, and that was to keep the loop road out of the MFPD, but put it back into the commercial.
That's correct. So as the next step in the process, what we would ask is that we will be supplying this additional information. We got a memo from Mr. Scioli identifying a number of both typos and clarifications on the plat, which we will have the surveyor address. And we would ask that you consider setting a public hearing for the master subdivision.
I have one question. Are you
Yes.
guys in agreement with increasing the scale of this map? Because I could have a very difficult time trying to read anything.
We
on
can
the
do
map.
that, yeah.
I think you can double the size of it almost, but sitting on 2 sheets.
Yeah, we may still keep it on one sheet and then provide a two-sheet plan, because I think it's helpful to see the whole site on one sheet. At least I find it.
Please keep it on one sheet and then give him two.
Well, no, I think I disagree
Because
with that.
sometimes when they're broken up, they get
Yeah, you know what?
separated. and-
I agree.
I disagree with that. Which one? Because I think you can put everything to the north where there's no work being done. See the 1A parcel,
Yeah.
and like the land bank? That can just be split in half and put on this page where nothing really is on it. To look at all the nuts and bolts that are on the south half. And that's the part that should be
I
enlarged.
mean, I have no problem with blowing up, but it's always nice to see everything on one sheet.
Well-
And then you could do blow-ups and cut it with a match line.
Yeah, but
Yeah, the sheet's gonna be so big, I mean.
it will fit on a desk.
I did some calculations on this, I used to draft, so I mean, I cut it out to lay these things out. You can cut it in half, like I said, keep R1A all the way to the north, no one's gonna really look at it. It's just the boundary line, everything is on the south side, and you can increase the scale probably to 1:80, as opposed to 1:50. Keep it on 2 sheets if you're gonna try to keep it on one sheet, the increase in scale is gonna be almost insignificant.
How about if they
Can you
keep
keep
it
the
on
sheet
one?
under an acre?
How about,
We will.
Bob, how about if they keep it on one sheet for whatever, filing purposes, but give you 2 sheets in multiple copies that can also be filed?
That's what I just said.
Yeah. I've seen it filed,
So
I've seen
Andy,
maps done on 4 sheets filed with the county.
folks, if I may, I think, Andy, it's important that you provide an overall sheet for the board, and then provide Bob with a two-sheet or a multiple sheet, so he can
Which
ensure
one's
the
gonna be filed?
details. I think that would be up to the board.
I've seen, we did that on all the other subdivisions, because it gets to a point of where you can't read it on pen.
Right,
We did Brandywine 4 sheets.
right,
We did Hudson Hills 4 sheets, for that very reason.
right. And it makes sense for people in the future to be able to read it also. You know,
That's my recommendation, as
Okay,
engineer and a draftsman.
okay. Are there any issues with regard to the memos that Bob and Sabrina have provided you? Any issues at all? Anything that you want to reiterate other than the number of sheets?
Bob, you
Anything
want to
that-
focus on it's helpful to get the information on the easements, what exists, what documents already exist.
Yeah, that's
what
critical.
proposed,
The
that's
easements,
important.
there was a question about, the easements are the utility easements that our engineers have been working through with.
Well, I would recommend on these, anytime you have a filed map, whatever's been filed, recorded somewhere, somehow,
Demonstrate that.
you really have to show it on the filed map. There's a ton of easements that were recorded when you did the retail. You really have to reference all them by the control number, so you can keep track of which one's proposed. Obviously, all the ones for the East Village have not been filed, so they're gonna be all proposed future easements. All the ones in the retail have to be shown and reference the control number, because they've all been filed.
That way we can
Right.
distinguish when we write up the conditions.
We're not going to show the ones in the East Village now. We will show those at the time of the 92-lot subdivision.
You're not gonna show anything on this at all? I thought you did. On
Well,
this-
we've shown the major one
You
going
showed all
through.
the proposed easements on the one, I'd love that.
That's fine.
I mean, I
We
would
have no-
show
But I think to the extent there are easements that cross the East Village parcel onto other parcels, we need to see them now.
Yeah,
Or know
I
of
would
Oh,
them.
agree.
absolutely, that's the one that's gonna go from the East Village across the building seven.
Ones internal to the East Village don't necessarily have to be shown.
Which is your
Correct.
stormwater, for example, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Right,
And those are shown on the plat.
there's the parking,
Yeah, parking, the recreation.
And also,
I mean,
too,
the playground, right? Did we get
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Also, too, a big issue here is, it was very unclear to me which parcels are part of the subdivision and which ones are out parcels. You know, usually when you have a good delineation on the property line on what's gonna be an out parcel, case in point, that southwest corner.
There's only, we'll label it as out parcel. That's the
Not
only
only
parcel.
that, Don't use the same type of line type that you use for all the other parcels, then you can't tell what's in the subdivision and what's not. It was very tough for me to figure out what's in, what's out, so try to keep that in mind when you do the map. Subdivision map, that is.
Anything else of any,
I'm just going over them more. I just had a recommendation to call that the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center, formerly Wallace, because that's what everyone calls it now.
Okay.
Just to keep it easier in the future. And also too, I noticed with the areas that were shown on the map for one of the parcels, the big parcel, the 59-acre parcel didn't match up with the table. So you might want to check that.
Yes, we found that as well. Surveyor's not perfect, like the rest of us.
Okay.
We try.
That's because he's not here tonight, you can say that,
Yeah,
right?
with all this fancy equipment now these days, they should be
Dead reckoning.
infallible.
Dead reckoning.
Garbage in, garbage out.
No.
Right. That's all I have for
Anything
now.
else? Okay, good.
No, I didn't go over every one, but.
Yeah, I understand, but the most important ones, and I think Andy's indicated that they're okay with all the other comments. Any other issues, questions from board members?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, let's, unless there's an objection, should we set a public hearing for this, and we assume we'll have this material in? So I'm thinking perhaps April 7th? That's a Tuesday, I believe, April 6th
Do it
is.
in March?
We do it in March.
Can you get the material to us and have it reviewed, and all that by March?
We can.
Fine, that's okay,
What's the date in March?
March 3rd is February 10th submission deadline,
which is passed.
which is passed, and March 17 is the 24th.
Can you do it by the 24th, Andy?
Yes.
That's fine,
Even better.
yep. St. Patrick's Day with you.
We've spent many a holiday together.
Yes, exactly. We're just rounding out the calendar at this point, touching all the bases, those that we missed.
24th of this month?
But it's sad that we missed in April. The first meeting is not on the
21st is
1st.
submission
We've had that,
day.
though.
Of March, but February.
Yes.
That gives them 3 working days. 4
Well, he
working
said
days.
he brought maps tonight, as a matter of fact.
We'll work
You're gonna
hard.
take
We'll
those
work
back with
overtime.
you?
Maybe
Not
we
much
want to
time.
break for a few minutes. You want to take a look at what they brought?
No, we don't. Here's the thing, if they don't satisfy both of our memos and the concerns you've raised tonight, then they should take the maps back and make a formal submission with
Right.
all of the information.
Right.
Instead of partial information.
And again, the cutoff for March 17th is when?
The 24th.
24th.
That's Monday.
So it's Monday. Okay,
He's not saying he can't do it.
I understand that.
But he's a very careful man what he says.
He knows Felix is watching home on television.
I try to be.
No, that's fine, we'll try that.
It's not complete, we will ask for an adjournment.
Yeah, exactly,
I
right.
mean-
Well, we haven't opened it, so it's, yeah, exactly, let's postpone it.
And we don't have to publish the notice until after the 24th, so we'll
Correct.
know. So-
We'll
Yeah.
know.
Yep.
Good,
Okay.
terrific. So-
And just 30 seconds to update the board on the East Village. There's a site plan application, which we resubmitted at the same time as the subdivision. We've received some initial comments from staff. We had a work session with staff last week that was very helpful for us to understand what we need to do to complete the package so that you get the full picture of how what we are presenting fits in with what the town board adopted in its amended resolution for the East Village in December. So we'll be back to you shortly, very shortly with that.
Okay,
Going back to this, Sabrina, I think, requested it, environmental assessment form for the master subdivision.
Yes.
Submit that.
yeah, that was in the memo. Yep. Okay.
Thanks very
great.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 2 items for extensions. The first one before us is the Chappaqua Central School District. This is a request for an extension for the final subdivision plat. I think it's to May 30th or so, right? June 15th, I had the wrong one.
The district or the school district?
The school district.
June 4.
June 4.
June 4th, okay. And then apparently they're working on stormwater issues with DEP.
Thank you, guys.
Quite honestly, I haven't received much from them in any way, shape, or form.
Well, yeah, I gotta tell you, this is third hand, but, in talking with, that reporter today, apparently DEP's not received anything from Jerry since last fall.
That's correct. I received nothing,
Just want the record.
and they have many, many conditions.
Yeah.
Many, many conditions.
There's a
And,
representative from the applicant here.
oh, okay, great.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Patrick from the law firm Cuddy and Fader. I'm here to kind of give an update on where my client is with resubmission to the DEP. As you guys know, their DEP issued their comment letter in October. Since then, my clients and the team has been making a lot of changes and addressing those comments, and it's requiring some additional, revisions to the plats be made. They anticipate submitting in the next few days, I've been told. I know when we submitted that letter before, I was told the same thing, but there's been some internal, politics, if you will, that kind of has slowed this down in the last few weeks. But I understand that that's been resolved now, and they do anticipate submitting in the next few days. So we will certainly keep you all updated if you so choose to grant the extension. And
Okay. But it was interesting, this was the reason for the story. The complaint was somehow leaked to the reporter that it was the planning board holding up this application for years. And, yeah, it was pretty interesting. So I was like, well, we approved it a year ago. And he was the one that said, nothing has come in. Now you've confirmed it, Bob. And of course, we know they went away for a couple of years in between, so interesting.
I have no knowledge of that.
Yeah. Anyway, is there a motion to grant the extension requested? Or do you want to talk about it?
Perhaps you can relay what Chairman just said
Absolutely.
about the question that a reporter asked, and make sure that they're briefed
Yes.
so that if a reporter approaches them, they understand, that silence isn't going to work. They need to be forthright.
Absolutely. Yes, I will let them know.
I think I was the last one to be contacted. I think that's already been done, from what I can tell, yeah. But anyway, that's the way it goes. Fake news.
If you will.
Anyway, is there a resolution, a motion to grant the extension?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Great. We have another request for an extension. This is on Citron. And this is the application.
It's a long driveway one, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, very long driveway. And I think we approved this,
while
back
ago.
in 2017.
Yeah.
So this has been going on, as you can see, many, many extensions here. Have you heard anything further on it? Good night, Les. So they've indicated that they're moving forward and working on their plans, et cetera, but I think if you check this letter, it's probably the same letter that's been received over the past couple of years.
Right, just
but-
redated.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
All right.
any issues or problems with it from the staff or legal?
Well, how many years can we extend it for?
There's no limitation.
There's no.
No
yeah.
limitation.
So years ago, there used to be a limitation, you could only extend for, I think it was 180 days total. And then, even if the board wanted to extend it further, it didn't have the authority under state law. They changed that several years ago, and now you have unlimited authority to extend for periods of 90 days each, as long as you deem the circumstances are warranted. I'm not aware of any change in circumstances.
Is it safe to assume, or I should say, is it safe to assume, I guess, a reason for not extending would be maybe if the laws had changed or something
Yeah.
like that?
If the laws have changed, or there's a change in the site, the physical, circumstances of the site itself.
So if the laws are the same and the site hasn't
Everything's the
changed,
same.
it's probably just, okay, just continue.
Right, exactly. We have had that in the past where we've had an upgrade or change in regulations, and that has been the reason why an application was finally lapsed. We have told in the past, an applicant, this is really the last 90 because there's a change in the law, and you really have to comply. And that was a problem with one application many years ago.
I received less on this than the other one.
Pardon?
I received less information on this than the other one. They call me up, and they talk, and they speak, and they do this. As far as formal applications for me to review and check off,
Right.
nothing.
But at the same token, to Jennifer's comment, I don't think there's really much appetite to, start all over and look at it again. It hasn't really changed in terms of the site or
laws.
anything else. Right,
That's changed.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. So is there a motion to grant this extension?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have minutes.
How many?
I don't know.
2 minutes?
So we have 2 minutes. January 21. So this is difficult. I don't have numbers on my lines.
Yeah, that was an oversight when I sent it to you, sorry.
No problem. I mean, should I just, I have some minor changes,
You want to just give it
because
to
we'll
me?
never be able to figure out the lines. We can
Yeah,
barely
sorry
do it
about
when they're
that.
numbers, so. Actually, I had a blank sheet, too.
Oh, you had a blank sheet in between?
Yeah, I think it was,
I will tell you, we've been having
That
problems
was
with our
the-
copier.
that would be the machine.
Yeah.
But-
Absolutely.
Did you take that out? Oh, yeah. you-
Is that okay, Jennifer? If we, given the circumstances, we just submit changes? Okay. So is there a motion to grant, to approve the minutes as we think they're going to be changed?
Motion?
Is there a second? Second? All in favor? Aye. So here's the
Wait,
January
who
21.
seconded?
I did.
Oh,
Yeah, it makes like I'm actually here. Okay, the second minute is February 4th. And are there any changes or suggested changes here?
One that I gave to Felicia.
Okay.
Minor.
I have one minor one on page 2, line 18, changing onerous to challenging. On page 3, line 39 at the end, Felicia, just insert the word currently before exists.
I'm sorry, what line was that?
39.
What page?
3. That's all I have. Anyone else, anything?
No.
Okay, as amended, is there a motion to approve the minutes of Tuesday, February 4?
So moved.
Second? All in all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we move down to our discussion item. This is a discussion on the draft GEIS scoping outline for the town board legislative action. This is for the Chappaqua Hamlet, the form-based code. So what is under consideration is approval of the scope itself. That will be adopted by the town board for the draft. I guess, would they go through a draft first, Sabrina? Is it a draft GEIS or is it just a GEIS?
Draft.
Draft first.
A
okay.
draft generic
And then it goes through the whole
environmental impact
process.
statement, then it'll be a final
Okay.
environmental impact statement.
So it's for the draft GEIS.
So I provided you a cover memo, which outlines some general issues in draft form, as well as a scope with your track changes for comment from you
Right.
this evening.
And the town board has extended comments until Friday, this Friday? is
This
it?
Friday
Right.
at noon.
Noon, okay. So if we wish to make any changes, we need to get those in to the town board by then. Tom submitted some comments, Greg submitted comments, Dick submitted comments. So, do you want to go through your comments first, your generic comments?
I'll go first, because
Sure.
I'm shortest.
But I was going to ask the group, the comments that we were discussing, are they really more
Comments
down the
have not been
road?
submitted to you, have they, Felicia?
No.
Oh.
Are these more down the road discussions and not really about this scope?
Some may be.
Some, I think a lot of them were, frankly.
Yeah.
As Sabrina has referred to them, getting down into the weeds sometimes a little bit, it's a scope. We're just setting the outline for the study.
Right.
Whether we agree or whatever the outcome, whatever we're talking about, the ingredients that go into the code itself and the considerations, that's really not within the scope. So I think it would be really best if we look at Sabrina's proposed memo to us, and then the document itself with an eye toward
Okay.
the overall comments. Because I think the comments that you submitted really are overall really important policy ones that I think you want to see reflected in the scope. That's my take on it.
Well, mine might go in the memo in the front.
Sure, absolutely, yes, of course.
But
Good
where-
point, good point. I think that would be the same with Tom's as well. You guys haven't seen these? These are just
No.
amongst ourselves then?
Yeah, I think we were just talking amongst ourselves.
Okay. well, we get a little argument
You know,
that
they
way.
they were all kind of meant to be personal and within the thing because, with all the cartoons we drew on it
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Well, the main thing was that it started with Tom because he said he couldn't be here. I just wanted to make sure his comments were out there. Then Greg wrote a lengthy piece, and which we'll clearly submit, I guess, or talk about tonight.
How do you want to do this now?
Well, I think we should why don't we go through the document itself?
First?
As amended, Sabrina sent us the latest revisions, and I think that's really what we should really look at.
Okay, well, I have nothing on page 1.
Yeah, well, okay, good. Good start. I have a comment on page 2, and it really is one that I think is really important.
And where would that be?
And that would be in the last paragraph on page 2. So, the thought I'd like to get out there is that the tool that we're looking at is just a tool, and even the mixed-use development is also a tool. I think we have it, personally, I think it's a little bit backwards to be making mixed-use development a goal. It is a tool to get to what the policy is, as I understand it from the comp plan. And that overall target, I think we have to keep in mind, and that is promoting a vital village, a vital hamlet. It's not so much later on, we talk about various tools, but the bottom line is all of these things, I think, are helping us in promoting not the changing needs of the community, but the demonstrated request of the community. So I don't like the term changing needs because I don't, we'll never catch up with those. They're constantly changing. But I think one of the common core that came out of all those discussions, and I think that are represented in the plan, is this request for a vital hamlet, a place where people want to come to, a place where people want to stay, something that will attract them, whether it's, coming back and having, sports there, restaurants there, and a place that's friendly to walk. Obviously, mixed use in terms of commercial and living. They want to live there as well. A variety of housing. All of these things were, I think, helping to support the primary goal, which is this vital hamlet. So
May I make a suggestion for
Sure,
you?
sure.
The objective of the form-based district is to rezone the study area such that the hamlet's existing character is preserved while establishing a vibrant commercial and residential hamlet to meet the changing needs of the community.
Well, I would say not the changing needs, but the defined,
I have
the articulated request of the
I
community.
have another, a slightly different one, I think. I would leave it all up to, is promoted to meet, is promoted to increase the socio-economic vitality of the community.
Yeah,
Is promoted to increase,
Yeah,
continue?
yeah.
The
Increase.
socio,
The socio-economic vitality of the community.
or, well, the hamlet, or I guess the community, okay, fine.
Yeah,
Hamlet
that makes
makes
sense.
sense.
Because it's
Hamlet.
bigger than just the hamlet, right?
I think you're right, All right,
The zoning's just the hamlet, but
Yep.
it's drawing
Okay.
from the whole community.
I tracked that in here.
yep. And again, for me, on page 3, I don't think that necessarily growth and future economic development were goals that we heard from most of the folks who participated in the comp plan project. Instead, again, what it was the vitality of the hamlet. So it was not just the shape, the feel, and the spacing. Those are all tools that will help us. But I think we really have to put out front, in at least my estimation, that it's again, we're not looking just for growth. We're not looking just for future economic development. We're looking for, as Dick said, socioeconomic vitality in the hamlet. So it's really a broad mixture. it's a little bit, and that's why I think later on, when we start to talk about various tools, the form-based code is not the end unto itself. It is just one tool that we're going to use,
So
hopefully.
how would you want to change that sentence, Bob?
I would echo the terms that Dick used before, and that's the
Is
socioeconomic
essential
vitality.
for socio-economic,
For the socioeconomic vitality of the community.
Well, okay.
And I guess really what you have here is, we mentioned community planning goals, and as articulated in the plan, and that plan, and those goals seem to me, as I recall, revolve around this whole notion of vitality and energy in the hamlet. And that might be another word to introduce in there as well, vitality and energy.
right now the sentence reads, the change from a conventional zoning code to a form-based zoning code in the Chapel Hamlet business districts is essential for socio-economic vitality of the community in a manner that is consistent with community planning goals.
Yeah, I'm with
Okay.
that.
That's okay. One quick little thing would be on page 3, second line, under draft generic environmental impact statement. I would substitute the word information for the word facts. I'm not quite sure what, facts are going to be very limiting if we're just going to be looking at numbers. I think we're going to be looking at information, so it's a little bit broader.
Okay.
And further in that paragraph, I'm not so sure we're really looking at highly technical or just technical material, but I'll leave that to folks.
I'm making the changes as you're talking.
Okay.
And so what I would say, if the other board members are in disagreement, to stop me, so that I can adjust accordingly. Any other comments on page 3?
See, page 4, we have that language. Dick, you must have stolen it from there. At the bottom, by the way, it's got that regarding socioeconomic vitality and energy. Well, it's the vitality, but I think energy would be great. Put in there.
Usually we do these things so late, no one catches things like
Right,
that.
well,
Yeah,
well, what happens is, obviously the way it's set up, we have this generic beginning, and then we go further into the outline, so it does become repetitive.
Any comments on page 4?
Yeah, let me see. We had some discussion last time about differentiating public land from private land.
It's later on in the outline.
Sure, but should it not be here also as a number 5? Site location and characterization, public land and private land, or versus?
Open space, natural areas, historic features. If you want to add in public land versus private land, we can add it.
Okay.
Would you like me to put this up on the screen?
I was just gonna say that.
Might help, I guess. If it doesn't slow you down.
It's not going to slow me down.
Typing will remain the same.
Typing will remain the same.
There's that delay from your fingers to the screen.
No, it's a light, traveling at 186,000
Well, I mean,
feet per second.
we're getting old, but we're not having slowed up yet. Come on.
Well, maybe we should in some
Yes,
cases.
Yeah. At the bottom of page 4, I'm not quite sure this fits, Sabrina, but maybe it goes, we do this later on. But again, when we talk about the commercial retail build-out scenario, as I recall, at this point, the assumption, I believe, for commercial is going to be in that public land area. That's where it's mandated. So I think that, and we keep all talking about, well, we're not going to see that anyway. So I'm not quite sure what the commercial retail build-out scenario is that is being looked at here.
Where is this?
This is the very bottom of page 4.
2C.
Yep,
Yeah, would it be the first floor?
That's
or
now
what
on,
do
you have to refer to the number.
I'm sorry, so 2C. B2C.
All right, it's Roman numeral 2.
The last
B,
lines, page 4.
2C.
I got it.
Oh, but it's not up there. Do you see how slow that is? Speed of light.
That's
yeah.
because they're 17 pages ahead of us.
It's 186,282 miles per second.
Very good. No wonder I missed
And
it.
this is gonna make me restart my computer.
So electricity is the same speed as light?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not
So
my
do you want
office.
me to do you wanna wait while I restart the computer or not?
I don't need it up there. I don't care.
I think it might be helpful.
Gentlemen?
I think it might be helpful.
And I'm in between the two of them.
All right, let me do something
They
different.
can see what you're doing, they can look at it and agree on.
Yeah.
It's not working on this laptop.
Oh, well, if it's a pain, I mean, you know.
Yeah, skip
It's
it.
not working?
I can move it to the other laptop.
Okay. How long will that take?
2 seconds. Could you go get the
2
other
seconds.
laptop?
That's a lot slower.
1,000, 2,000. Okay, let's
Must be
move
really
on.
far, 186,000 miles, it must be really far.
Hang on. Let me eject properly.
So you had said you thought that retail
put
was
the
only
picture back in
mandated
there?
in the public
Yeah, that's the only
spaces?
place where it's mandated, under the form-based code as proposed.
There
But it
were-
can't-
there
but it's
were
allowed.
red-
Can be.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
can be red.
So what is the
right.
assumption that you're
Okay.
making here? If we're assuming just, and I think that's what Eric was doing, was just assuming that it was going to be in the new mandated commercial area. What kind of assumption is that?
Well, I would think you would also, well, again, if you're running a model and you're trying to figure out what's coming in, you would,
Stop pressing it.
again, it was part of our conversation this weekend.
Exactly.
What could be built or what, what might be built, that kind of thing.
Ready to share.
Yeah, because you could do 50 different scenarios to run.
While Felicia's doing, oh, you're doing it.
No, Sabrina's doing
Sabrina.
Jennifer, do you want, this is the copy of all three. I mean, we can put this into the record. I mean, if you
Yeah,
want.
I mean, it's
Oh, you mean our
subject to
conversation
FOIL.
this weekend?
Yeah.
I mean, it's for.
Well, I mean, just forward the email to you?
That's the summary of all three emails.
Oh, I get that.
That's the chain.
Right, I think that, yeah, we got the same one, right?
I got Dick's in there and Tom's and,
Well, let me ask you, do you all agree with everything that's in those emails?
yeah, but they're really generic. It's,
Well, except mine. Mine's a little specific.
So let's go back. We were discussing 2C.
yes.
It's the same.
Okay.
And I guess here, I think in 2C, there
We
should
need
be.
commercial retail build-out because the code currently calls for a designated area for commercial use. We need to do a build-out which considers that completely built out, so we cannot change that. If you'd like to add a different
What was
build-out
I-
scenario, public versus private, or public, non-public, public-private comparison, that's different. But we can't, I would advise against not excluding 2C.
Well, not excluding, I think was, no, not at all, but again, it's begging the question of what is the assumption? Is that build-out scenario for commercial retail based on the commercial mandated build-out area around the circle, which is the public property? Or is it going to encompass some sort of reasonable percentage where it's going to be permitted in build-out?
So if you look at, we can only look to what the code is calling for. There's a designated commercial area on public and private area. 2C goes through the build-out for all commercial areas. 2D is saying we want to look at it without town-owned land. Or 2D is without town-owned.
So the 2D then would be,
Would exclude the commercial area and the
and where it
residential.
is therefore optional.
No. It would include town-owned properties.
No, but D would be,
Without-
basically all the private area and would therefore presume that every single built-out space in the private area would then include commercial, even though it's not required.
We have
Is that what
retail
the
at
assumption
first
would be?
floor.
No, the assumption that would be, given the market today, people are not wanting to build commercial.
So
They're
what-
wanting to build residential. This code is requiring a specific area for commercial.
Right.
So that build-out of commercial will be considered.
So
in
what
those
would the
areas.
assumption be for the build-out for private property off of public under current market conditions? What percentage is Eric going to state is the presumption for build-out for that?
I cannot answer that today.
Well, that, I think, is very important.
Yes, it is very important, but it is not important to developing an outline.
I think it should be in the outline to say that the presumption should not only be set forth, but alternatives should be looked at and studied. So if you're gonna, and a worst-case build-out, it seems to me on commercial, you would not look at today's current market conditions, but you would say it's permissible, therefore presume in worst-case scenario,
If it is
100%,
permissible, then they will look at the worst-case scenario.
100% build-out.
Which is
for commercial.
100% first floor
Where it's
build-out for
permitted.
commercial. Correct,
And then we have the public, and then the private,
Correct.
2D, okay.
correct.
And then I guess to the point that we saw, at least from Tom's comments, and I think echoed by Dick, and I think this is what you were hinting at, what's the reasonable
Correct.
presumption?
Yes, there's a.
So we should really have those. It seems to me, whenever we do this study, we should have those presumptions
And-
outlined so we understand what they are studying.
I am sure that the consultant team is working on those assumptions and will provide them to the town board, and the planning board will get a copy of them at some point in the future.
But don't you think we should actually ask them for them,
I
make sure they
have
do it?
asked them for that.
Okay,
I can only
Well, I
say
would-
this
I would put it in
5
the
different
scope.
ways.
okay. My thought would be to put it in the scope to make it very clear that we want
Unfortunately, I do not have it to put in the scope right now.
Okay.
Okay, it is not, as if it has not been asked for, it is under development.
Mm-hmm.
I have discussed it with the consultant team, the town has not received the assumptions yet.
Right.
We are required to move forward with the scoping document to meet the timelines that the town board has set forth. Okay?
For the scope.
For the scope. This is a scope, this is an outline.
But why can't we put that in the outline? I don't know what the conclusions are.
I don't have them right now to put in the outline, Bob.
I know that because they're going to provide that. I think we're like this. I'm just saying that these are things that we would want. I don't know what the numbers are. I have no idea. But what we're saying is, when you guys do this study, we want to see these alternatives. I have no idea what the answers are. And we don't know what the assumptions are, but they should address these generically to say, look, this is the 100% build-out if it's permissible. This is 100% build-out with private, all permissible, and public. Then, if it's possible, I don't know if it is, but if it's possible with their economic team, what is the presumption for something that's realistic, for lack of a better term? So I think if we set that as what we want to see and consider, or what the town board wants to see and consider, it doesn't matter right now that they haven't given it to us, but we'll find out at some point. It just makes sense, I think. I don't know.
So how
Am I
would you
nuts?
want me to edit this right now? Do you want me to put 100% next to commercial retail build-out scenario?
I guess, as an
I mean,
alternative.
I'm trying to
Yeah, I understand.
respond.
Yep.
Well, but, wait a minute, now, if it's 100%, is that gonna be, 3,000 building, housing units?
Well, it's commercial, so it's not housing. So if you do
Okay.
that, that's going to actually reduce the number of housing units because your first floors will be occupied with commercial throughout the hamlet. In a best case or worst case, depending on your point of view, I guess.
Yes, right.
Based on what I'm hearing you say, I think if we add 100% in, commercial retail build-out scenario, 100%, and then you have the one below it that says without town-owned land, and then we can do another one that says, realistic, expectation of build-out.
Who's gonna make that decision?
Well, the consultants, that's why
They'll
they're
make that
hired.
decision?
Based on
Yeah.
market.
Write it in the report?
Yeah, based on their market
In other words,
information.
You would say yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, we've done that before. I mean,
Realistic expectation of build-out, and I'll
Referring
say,
to,
market, consultant,
Yeah,
market, and other conditions. Okay? So
Yep.
then, that's in there.
All right, well, that gets to another.
Which build-out are we talking about?
this is the commercial.
So should we say realistic expectation of?
Well, it's under commercial, it's under,
It's not under commercial. It's,
No,
I've
Jennifer's right.
qualified it as commercial.
No, Jen's right, it should be put in.
Commercial/retail?
oh, okay. I was gonna have it under commercial, but I see what you're saying, yeah, that's fine. Yep, got it.
Okay?
All right, I'm back on 4. I have a question.
You have to go, but my page numbering is different than your page numbering because I'm tracking
Oh.
changes, so please use the subs.
Can I just ask, is that new E, is that covering with town-owned land?
Yes,
So that'll be,
yes, because the one below it,
Yeah.
or the one above it is without.
Shouldn't say it, how do you know though? I'm just asking these questions? Just for clarification.
Because it's a clarifier right here without town-owned land.
Okay.
But where does it say town-owned land? On the prior page on Roman 2B, 2C, it doesn't say anything about,
This
There it is.
2BC includes town-owned land.
Would it make
Yeah.
sense, and I'm sorry if this is nitpicky, but to have
I have,
a
I'm not, I'm
subset
okay
under
with it.
C, one being 100% and the second being realistic expectation?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking would be an indentation in the outline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
So
some
like
sense.
sub one, little one,
Yeah.
little two.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with 100% on commercial retail, I do on housing, but a small question, if you go back to Roman 2B1A,
2B1A.
50%
it says,
assessed?
yeah, what does 50% of assessed value in quotes mean?
Where are you?
Roman 2B1A.
Right in the middle of the page, just past it,
Roman 2B.
stop right there.
Applicant, because there is within the legislation, there is a requirement to understand what 50% of assessed value is.
But why is it in parentheses?
It's in quotes, because it
I'm
is a
sorry,
quote from,
quotes.
it's in quotes from the legislation.
It's in quotes in the legislation also?
Yeah, no, it is referencing language from the legislation.
All right, now I want to go down to, Roman 2B, 2AI. All right, include exploration of alternative assumptions. I really think that all alternates that they come upon that overwhelm the existing infrastructure for roads and parking and traffic and school enrollment, should be looked at perhaps in an overview to begin with before proceeding with all of the rest of the studies. And my little paragraph over the weekend was that if they are going to use an ultimate build-out of 3,000 home dwellings, houses, apartments, whatever mixture. If it is 3,000, which I think was mentioned during the last meeting we had, that could be the upper end.
I don't think anybody mentioned a hard number on the upper end, Dick.
No one mentioned a hard number, but the range of 550 to 3,000 was, I heard it.
Not from me.
Maybe.
Yeah, the 3,000 was thrown out the last meeting, and I have no idea where that
Yeah, I
number
heard
came
it
from.
too, I wasn't quite sure.
Right,
where
I
that
did
came
not
from.
throw out 3,000. I think that came from you trying to demonstrate when it came to
used
limits of
1,000.
sewer.
I used 1,000.
I would not use 3,000.
What,
Alright.
is someone gonna come up with a number on that?
There will be a number that is part of this process, that is part of the analysis, yes.
Okay, so then I don't need numbers, I think that there should be a pre-evaluation that eliminates, all
The
alternatives.
unrealistic.
Huh?
The unrealistic.
Yeah, because they flood where they
Correct.
are existing infrastructure. Now, someone could say, oh, well, the town could build more schools, the state could build more highways and bridges. Nonsense. We're gonna have,
So is there language in here that you want me to put?
yeah, here, I'll give it to you.
I think overall, and this was I'm trying to represent his thought, he's not here. You can do it better than I can, of course, but I think Tom's overall concern was that the EIS should be something that is more helpful in guiding us to a solution and not just a max out. That is not especially helpful in a public development process. And I guess that is one that we look at when private people come in here, because they come in and say, this is what I want my 25 units, and then there's the no build or the developer's proposal, and then we go in between that, and we mitigate and work on it, go back and forth, jawbone. Not necessarily the best recipe for the best community solution in this kind of a process. So Tom's observation, I think, which Dick joined in agreement, was, is there a way to make the GEIS more realistic, more helpful in helping to guide us to the best possible solution? And again, going back toward the goal. So his comment, I think, was that just doing the math and showing maximum build-outs, and then tying in Greg's point, which he's got experience in the business and the economics of it, is very unrealistic. So what does it really tell us? It's a lot of money that you spend for.
I don't think anyone disagrees with you.
So
I
what-
mean, from
so
my
what-
perspective.
So what do we do? How do we make it better? I mean, I understand.
I understand what you're asking for. I've added Dick's language in
Yeah.
here. I don't think anybody is in disagreement with your thoughts.
So do we
it's
have any thoughts or recommendations that we can, I don't know, that
I
we can
think
give to
adding
the town
this in
board?
here as part of the proposed scoping document, just so you all understand the process that will occur. All of these comments are going to be submitted to the town board along with all of the other public comments. Your board comments are separate from the public comments. Those comments will be given to the town board. At the same time, I will be having conversations with the consultant and trying to get at these issues
Right.
that you are raising right now in this comment. So I think overall, based on my existing conversations to date with the consultant team who will be doing these analysis, I do not sense that we are very far apart from what you were saying as to what is realistic, what is a realistic expectation versus a pie-in-the-sky number that is not wanted by the
No,
community.
that's just arithmetic.
Absolutely, and I don't think that there's any intention, at least it's not my intention, to study
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
things that are not realistic.
Right.
3,000 units is out of this world unrealistic, okay? You know, if I was to put a number on it, I'd say between 500 and 1,500 is a better range for consideration if we are developing all lands within the hamlet. If we are not developing town-owned property, I think the number is probably more like between 400 and 600 units.
I would have said 3 to 5.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
I-
and this is just, again, my numbers are based off of what, the same information you have seen,
Yeah,
okay?
I believe, that one of the places we have to go first, it's sort of not a environmental thing, is the school capacities.
Correct, and the school has been very much involved in this process and speaking with the consultant team and kind of weighing in on their occupancy and the demands on them.
Yeah, and so did the consultant say, well, how many children there would be per dwelling unit?
Yes, that's all part, they have
Yeah,
not
that
told me
gets
that number,
studied.
but it
That gets studied.
Get studied,
Yeah,
yeah.
Right,
that-
it hasn't been
it's part of
studied.
the analysis.
That's good, exactly right.
Yeah.
But in this town, it's about one child right now. In the 2010 census, it's one child per household.
And I think that the 2020 census is still going to be one child, if not less, per household.
Well, okay, but if you have 1,000 units, for instance, and you add 1,000 children,
Correct, what does that do?
the
Right,
schools blow up.
yeah. See, my frustration is,
And that's a hard stop to me
But
for
who,
that
who,
option.
but
Well-
that,
The
but
school
again, though,
district.
that's not a realistic number. 1,000 units and saying there's gonna be a kid in every one of those, that's not a realistic way to look at
Correct.
it.
Correct, and so we have a consultant team who is experienced in environmental impact statements in schools. I am finding myself having to push a little bit further because we are a municipality and not a private entity. I have full confidence that we will get all of this wrapped up and in a means that is meaningful and useful and not unrealistic and pie in the sky.
my frustration on this is, I guess, making certain that, for example, your expertise is really leveraged at the outset with these guys
And-
to make certain that they are working in a lane that makes sense, whether it's 300 to 500 or 400, 600, but something in that area I think that's my frustration, because I'm not seeing that here, and I get very nervous.
And I understand,
and you
and I
can't-
want you to, which is why we are going through this, so
Right.
I can hear your thoughts. I have every intention of bringing forward your concerns. I do not think the town board is going to reject your comments. What it will come down to is further conversation with the consultant team
Right.
to ensure that they understand the perspectives of the town of Newcastle.
Yep.
So that they can direct their work accordingly.
Right.
Okay, we are at a critical juncture right now where this scope is quote-unquote a stopgap, if you will, because the consultant team is not working beyond the work that they've already done.
Right,
Okay, this is going to shape how they are moving
Right.
forward, and we need to get it right. I am very cognizant of that.
Yep.
Your comments are helping inform me
Right.
further of what I professionally know and expect to be done.
Right.
So let's continue going
yeah,
through
and
your
again, we've been through the
helpful
scoping
comments.
process, so we know how critical
Correct, so,
this
so
document
let's
is.
put it
Right.
into the scope if
Right.
it's not there right now.
Exactly.
Yes,
Okay, please put an S after alternative, and
where?
right above schools. Alternatives. Thank you, and then add parking, if you'd be so kind. Traffic, parking, roads, schools.
Not put sewer in there too, what are you?
Sewer is probably
Are you okay?
It's all in there.
issue.
It's later on we come to that,
They come to that lady with the
in great detail,
stormwater.
yeah.
You're asking for these things to be considered first.
Well, yes, that's right. And it's subject to change, of course, because it's not IE, it is EG.
Correct. Moving on.
So where are we now? We went through B, 2, C,
We got
we
to
added
3.
D. Okay, again,
Okay.
on number,
I'm still on this page?
yep, okay, I'm not quite sure I'm on the right page.
Where am I? I'm 3,
Where are you?
I'm gonna take this one out.
right above 3, okay. Vehicular, pedestrian circulation and parking. I would add schools to that one, too. On double E. Where'd it go? There it is, it's D. Vehicular, pedestrian circulation, parking, and schools. Because I think the schools are gonna be
I
a
believe you, you don't have to explain.
What,
key item.
you guys are traveling at light speed, where are you?
We're right on where you left, we're right here.
Sabrina, I think
We
you
haven't
lost
gone that far.
5.
Oh, you're at the top 5?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
5.
Okay,
All right.
Yep.
C,
Residential, commercial,
C,
put the T
yes.
back.
C1,
yep,
Roman,
A, B, C.
You see it?
Yep.
Okay.
Roman 2, C, 1, B.
I'll fix it.
yes.
It says encourage mix of uses to enhance the viability
Vitality?
and vitality. That'll make some people like me stammer a little bit, but, or something else. Improve, then you can say improve socioeconomic development.
Well, on that, I'm glad you hit that, because that particular paragraph, I don't think we're really encouraging mix of uses. We want to encourage and enhance the vitality of the hamlet with mixed uses, with improved, with
Yes.
sustained environmental benefits,
That-
enhanced
perfect.
walkability. Those are the
Like that.
tools, those are the functions of the vitality. So those, I think that, again, we're mixing it up, and I think we should really emphasize vitality is the goal, and then we're going to encourage mixes of uses and sustained environmental benefits, environmental strategies, I guess, not benefits, enhanced walkability, protection of historic and desired architectural character. Those are things that we see as tools to help promote what is our overall goal.
You have words, exact words for?
That was
You were
it.
just
How about
flip-flop
the
in the
exact
beginning,
words
right?
that are up there?
Yeah, you just kind of
Oh, you were
flip-flopped at the beginning.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's really it. And I think down at 3, when we drop down from 2 to 3, we talk in this document about the benefits to the town and the general public from implementation of the proposed action. I think at some point, either it's 4 or a subpart here, we need to look at the costs. So whenever you expand, you are going to have costs. You're going to have DPW costs, you're going to have maintenance costs, you're going to have emergency services costs, equipment costs, policing costs. So I don't know where we capture that. but somewhere, this is not all rainbow stuff. There are costs associated with this kind of work.
Usually
I
that's
saw
in the
that.
community facilities and services, so page 13.
You could do that? Yep.
Police, fire, public works.
Well, it's- Okay.
You know, it does not hurt to put in parentheses here as a reminder, make sure the costs.
Ultimately, I think the town board's going to be engaging to a certain degree in a cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah.
Now, unless you know what those costs are, you can't really do that analysis. Anyone else on that page or that area?
No, I have one, but it's peanuts and it can wait.
Oh,
A jitney. We're gonna end up with a bus line up and down the hill.
existing environmental 3, Roman numeral 3.
Existing environmental.
The only thing I would recommend is, and I think it comes up later on, and would be the recommendation there as well, but under A, 1B, relevant studies, it might be nice at some point if we tie in some of those.
C?
Yeah,
C, relevant, yes.
Yeah, other applicable plans, at some point, it would be nice, maybe we can roll in some of the past traffic studies that we've done here in town over the eons. Some of those must be useful to some degree.
They've been given to the consultant.
Good, well, they should
There
obviously
are other
recognize it.
applicable plans.
Yes.
Okay. I'm okay with it. Have we decided what XX is?
Nope.
Okay.
And under that, again, number 4 is, again, whenever you do this with,
Number 4?
yeah, adding 4, which is again, increased marginal costs involved with any of this activity. You know, we talk in terms of mitigation, but before mitigation, you also have to know what the increased marginal costs are too.
Maybe to deal with the XX, maybe it's not so much a dimension. I know when they do market studies, they look at the physical of the area, because sometimes a highway or a bridge or a stream or a school kind of chops off a market area.
It's a delineation.
Yeah, so maybe it's not just a clean 200 or I know we threw out 500 feet in the meeting.
Are we talking about the detail now, the analysis and how to do the analysis?
No, I was just trying to suggest where, the question was asked, do we have a number for XX?
And no.
And I was suggesting, well, maybe instead of putting a number, you talk about the capture zone. That's how they do market studies. They do it by capture zones. They don't usually do it by dimension. And that follows usually the physical characteristics of the land you're studying. So maybe it's done more like that.
So we could say within XX feet, or a capture zone,
Yeah,
based
right.
on, and which
And
way they
they'll-
feel might be more appropriate.
Right, there's a better way to phrase it, which they'll know how to do.
Yeah, it keeps skipping. Like it doesn't react. Okay.
And that will let them
What?
identify
Slowing you
nice
down?
neighborhoods and stuff.
It
like that.
actually is slowing me down.
See that?
Is it because you're looking up at the screen and down at your?
No, it's because when I hit space, it doesn't space.
Oh,
It
what's
is
do?
spacey.
Yeah.
There's a lag.
There's a lag. I
Under,
don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it's the laptop itself.
under B, if no one has anything further on A, under B, 2, I would add E, and once again, it talks about potential impacts of rezoning and build-out. It doesn't talk in terms, and I think we should put it in, any potential adverse impacts.
I did
have to.
anticipated costs as a D.
I think adverse impacts is probably broader than just economic costs.
But that's what the study's supposed to do. You look at both the pros and the cons.
It's only looking at the pros, though. If you notice, the scope is
How do you
really.
know? Potential impacts of the proposed, it doesn't say good or bad. I can put good and bad. I mean,
Yeah, okay.
the intention
pros
of
and
this
cons.
is
That's good, that's
to,
true.
is to present an objective,
Absolutely.
good and bad.
Yeah.
Put in pros and cons. Can I tell them?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll put it here just to make sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's better.
Pros and cons.
Pros and cons, yeah. Adverse, and
That
positive
sounds
and adverse
so much more
impacts.
But they
professional.
know both.
I mean, the whole thing, I think, is set to set the stage that we are doing this for positive impacts. but there could be
Here's the thing.
unintentional adverse fallout.
Yeah,
And you need to know
correct,
both
and
before
I
you make a good
I have to
decision.
tell you, this is an attempt to try and meet some of the goals. This environmental impact statement might show that it's not the best way to do things. The existing code needs to change. You know, it may say there's too many bad things that are occurring, okay, which is equals impacts. And the town board may not want to adopt the code because of these impacts, and they don't like, they are not resolved that changing the existing draft code would help mitigate. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
there's a process here.
Right.
So.
And they might modify the code based on what they see here.
But
as well.
and they may say, we can't adopt this code, period, that we need to do something else.
Okay.
Okay, I can't predict what the town board is going to say. This is their process moving forward to try and outline all of the impacts, pros and cons of this legislation,
good.
so they can understand where they have to balance or not. We can live with the code we have today.
Okay, well said. B, zoning. It's right down there at the bottom if you move
Yep,
up.
computer's taking its time.
There's the lag. Is it 3 times?
Electricity can't keep up with us.
I want 2D.
You want a lot.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, D. Natural resources such as steep slopes, wetlands, and buffers, comma, tree removal, and stormwater.
I did hit space there, by the way.
And 3, mitigation. Nothing further on this yet?
No, this is your comments.
Yes.
That's our comment.
That's your comment.
Oh, do we want to change the
mitigation
comment and
is
say
not
take it out? We have to revise
That
it.
hasn't
somehow.
been resolved?
Did you put in two, is somewhere there where we're gonna say, or are you just saying it's implied with the whole process, the positive and adverse impacts? Because that's what
I'm
the
saying
study
it's
is.
implied in the whole thing. I just
Okay.
added it here as
Okay.
a tickler to make sure. If not, I'll go through and
Good,
add it in.
okay, fine.
And you can put it in your cover memo as an overarching theme, which
Yeah.
would be even more
Yep.
to the point.
I agree.
Do you want to add the or capture zone? Where it says XX feet there?
I think so.
Yeah, yeah.
And frankly,
That's the
Thank
second
you.
place.
or
that you
capture
did.
zone as consultancy fit, see best. That would be my recommendation. I don't know, Greg, do you
Yeah,
agree?
no,
Do you think that's,
Yeah.
give them the
There's
flexibility?
a lot of people that were saying in the meeting
Yes.
last week that,
Yes.
you know, there's these nice neighborhoods and it bumps up against this, and I agree, you know, thinking about it, it made a lot of sense.
Yep,
It's not as simple as a circle and just doing a radius.
right. Yep.
Okay, so what do we do about 3, B3, where it says mitigation, procedures to expedite implementation of the proposed codes?
Well, we agreed that that was not mitigation. I'm not, you know,
Is it litigation?
please. I don't know how you mitigation for zoning.
I don't know how you mitigate for zoning either.
For zoning, I mean,
I mean, you
I
could just
think
have
that's
a
what we were
general
asking.
Statement.
you just
to
consider
say-
alternatives, not mitigate.
Right, I mean, the phrase there could just say, you know, describe and analyze or identify mitigation measures with respect to identified impacts.
So,
section.
so the
So-
mitigation you're saying is for any adverse impacts that are found,
identified
what's the mitigation
in two.
for?
Right,
I
because
think
number
that's
one is
very good.
assessing existing conditions. Number two, what's the impact of what you're proposing to do? And number three, how are you going to mitigate that impact that was identified in number two?
Mitigate any adverse impact, if it's
Adverse
positive, who
impact.
cares, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
So just a general statement to identify mitigation measures to address identified adverse impacts.
that should probably go throughout, because I think that term shows up a few other places.
I would agree with that. It's in every section, there's a 3 that says mitigation.
It's just the format, the
Right,
existing.
so I can,
impacts of
I can
proposed
go
and how do you
through the
mitigate.
scope, and I can make that change in all areas where it
Makes good
says.
sense, I think.
Yeah, and we have complete confidence. in
And
your
that way, we
ability
don't have to
do that.
repeat it every single time we see it.
Okay.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Like you can see in A3, it just says mitigation measures.
Yeah.
Well, if we go
Are we,
to C,
CC, visual resources, right?
describes impact, see, in here, it's a little bit more descriptive.
Right.
Right.
And then under BX, looking from the top of the hill, I'm not sure what the hill is, but there are hills all around, so we should describe those as, obviously, Quaker, Hamilton, the top of King.
What about the other side?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
Oh,
that's,
yeah.
that's Quaker.
that Quaker,
and-
Hamilton?
Yeah, Quaker and Hamilton, and,
Hang on a minute, where are you?
Page 7.
C1B10,
X, 10.
Roman numeral 10.
Looking from the top of the hill.
Yep.
Hills, it should be hills.
Yes.
So where do you want this? In
Surrounding
bronze?
hills, maybe we say surrounding hills.
Good idea.
Looking from the top of the surrounding hills.
Yes,
And that will cover, because it isn't a bowl.
it also sounds bucolic.
Did you want to add specific references?
I think that's good what Greg did, because. it was
Surrounding
just
hills.
Surrounding hills.
Okay,
We'll get at least 2 shots.
Covers
Yeah,
all-
you'll get
covers
at least
all
2
of
or
it.
3.
Yeah, it covers
Well,
everything,
you
right.
get 2.
Very
okay, good.
generic.
Moving on.
Now, in C, when we describe the existing height of the ceiling, that's a study of the existing
Describe ceiling.
ceiling
Existing-
height.
Yeah, in existing
Same.
buildings.
So,
Yeah,
But
that's
does
a
that-
ceiling height, as opposed to height ceiling.
You gonna go into buildings and measure the ceiling heights?
yeah, I didn't get that.
What, is it backwards?
Yeah, I don't know why
But
it's
I
here.
think the study is going to be based on the, are we looking at what the impact will be based on the ceiling heights that are going to be permitted, and therefore the building height permitted, what the impacts will be for visual? I think that's what we're looking at, not the current.
I don't know how you get,
I don't either.
that's an inside the building.
But I think that we were talking about that, it was gonna be like 16 feet
This
for
is
commercial.
existing conditions. Describe the character, document existing
Oh, you're right, yep.
views.
Yep, so
What
it's-
is the existing ceiling
have to go in 'em.
height?
But
And
we,
the
yeah,
existing
Are you
structures.
talking about just the height of the structure?
Yes.
So I think
existing-
ceiling, it should not even be in.
Maybe
Right.
it's roof height?
Yeah, I
Sabrina,
think it's
ceiling
Then
would be
maybe
from the
describe
floor.
existing
Yeah.
roof
height.
It's
height?
You want the
interior.
whole- You'd have to put the total building height.
Yeah.
It's
I
an
think-
interior measurement.
Why is it
accordance with
relevant
the
with the
town.
ceiling?
Yeah, describe existing roof height.
I think that's
Yep.
better, yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think that's
better.
better.
I think
Say it.
if you're gonna have these extra words afterwards, you probably don't have to worry about the ceiling height on the Quaker Street Bridge. I may be wrong, but I don't think.
Well,
any-
you want the height of the bridge.
Well, but it's a ceiling height.
It
I would
says,
say
describe
height.
existing roof height,
Or
or
just height.
Bridge doesn't,
building,
old bridges had roofs,
Existing
but not new.
structural
Structural
height.
height, structure height, total height.
Structural height.
structural height in the study area.
Okay, that's good.
How about that?
And take out all of the examples, right?
No, I'm keeping those examples in
Why
there.
do you need Quaker Street Bridge?
Because everybody knows what the height is. Everybody sees the bridge every day.
It's kind of a high point in that area, because it's
And then
over the
conifer
buildings,
is gonna be above it.
even above it, right?
Okay,
Another
so,
30 feet.
Yeah, but, okay, technically then, what you need is the top of the bridge, if you think it's a part of the view shed.
yes.
Then it's not the bottom
No,
where the
no,
ceiling
it's the
is,
top.
it's the top
Yep.
of the bridge.
Again, it's, yeah.
Yeah, ceiling's
Height.
been struck. Ceiling's gone.
Yeah,
But
go.
we can leave that, we can say appropriate heights, and you can have all those lists, but I put Quaker Bridge last on
Yep,
the list, and put it in parentheses maybe.
or quotes or something.
Yeah, that says,
I.e.,
Really,
i.e.
can we move
I get the
on?
impression you
Yes.
don't like that one there.
Can we move
moving
on?
on. Okay,
I thought, anything else on, we got the roofscapes in there, post-solar, that
I
was
mean,
good.
you know, it's a typo, technical typo. You want typos?
Yeah, we're going through this. You wanna
Okay.
talk about it?
C2A3. Roof structure elements such as penthouses, I think what it was supposed to be was it wasn't meant as penthouses.
Penthouses.
No, it wasn't penthouses. It was the penthouse for the elevators and the stairwells.
Yeah.
This is penthouse.
Not penthouses like somebody has a penthouse.
Right.
It's a whole different meaning.
Yes.
It is.
But
Architecturally.
stairs and elevators have penthouses that
And
come
that's
up.
what they call them,
Yeah.
definition-wise.
And those are not counted in height in the code.
Oh, really?
Correct. Usually the code goes to the top of deck.
Yeah, but
Really?
you can put the elevators in the ground, you know, the equipment in the ground, or you
Because
put it
the
on a roof.
penthouse usually it's an overrun thing for safety.
Right.
And then also if you have to get up to the top of the roof, you need access for a
So,
stair.
so if I may, I would love the technical, like if there's technical small changes that you pick up, but let's try and limit the conversation as to the why. I trust your professionalism.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that two words there, right? Penthouse or one word? It's like pent,
Is it elevator penthouses?
It's elevator and stairwell penthouses.
is
Yeah.
it one word or two?
I think it's one word.
I'll be serious, it's two.
Well, elevator would be one word.
Elevator's one
elevator
word, penthouse is
and
one word.
Stair penthouses. And I'd make penthouse one word.
Penthouse one word, penthouses.
Make it plural.
And in the sentence above, please put a comma after
And then
IE.
you can get rid of 4 elevators.
Right, just below.
I love the solar panel one up there.
What do you want to get rid of?
I don't want to get rid of anything, I want to add a comma after IE.
No, you're okay at this point. Yeah, because you struck it. You're good.
After IE,
Yeah,
you need a comma?
well, English often has that
IE comma?
requirement, but you don't
IE
have to.
period
Comma.
comma?
Usually there's a comma after the second period.
Okay. I never
Well,
knew
the
that.
sen- Well, solar panels, that's fine, but, okay, I don't care what you do.
I
You
added your
move on,
comma.
move on.
I love spending my Tuesday night with you guys.
Hey,
With technical comments in English.
yeah, you asked for small things.
I
wasn't
did,
gonna-
listen.
I wasn't
this-
discussing if somebody else wanted to.
How long have we worked together? I really
I just learned 2
appreciate
things
the
now.
grammar corrections.
Penthouse and the comma after 2 periods.
I mean that earnestly.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
I just want to observe that it seems longer than it actually has been.
when I write something, it takes me 3 versions before I get half of the
Listen,
things out.
the art of grammar has been lost due to this,
True, true.
okay? It drives me crazy.
Yep.
All
So
right.
where we can better the public by listening to our debate and our banter about I.
Okay, we're gonna go to page, I'm sorry, we're gonna go to C3? Is that what we're
Describe
We're at
impacts of roof
C3.
design?
Yes? Describe impacts to rooftop designs in regard to HVAC and other technical equipment.
Is there-
E.g.,
Period, comma?
there's a comma, yeah.
After the period of comma, right?
Yeah, I forget which one of these
That's what we
does.
just told.
I.E. One of, either, I can't remember, so. Okay, so I don't understand. Visual interruption, I do understand. Concealment. I mean, this is gonna be a carry kind of village.
That's something different.
Oh.
It's screening you're
Confused.
talking about, right? Screening of the equipment.
Yes.
What about screening? Wouldn't it be better?
Concealment, and how does mitigation fit in? Is that,
Yeah, is this, I'm having trouble with the way it's organized. Is describe impacts to rooftop designs, is that supposed to be E? And then mitigation,
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah,
that may be it.
yeah, there's an error here.
Yeah, that would make sense. Better sense. Excuse me, more better sense. Okay.
Oh,
right, and then
this one.
3, little e.
This is E.
3 should, yeah, be changed to little e.
Everyone feel better?
I might not have comments on the substance, but I'll help you with organizing it.
Right.
You were very good at outlining.
Well, we need that kind of vast
That's what I'm
team.
here for.
Now, what we need also is a monitor to say, shut up.
All right,
to
so now we're
somebody.
going
I
into
thought we
E.
had the
Jen, you need to
OCD
be
stuff
better at
covered.
that. Jen, I can't do this and that at the same time. We're on D, folks.
Right, D.
Okay, so you're gonna do something about mitigation, that's fine.
Yeah.
1A, Roman numeral 3, describe existing slopes in relation to streets. I know we look at it later on with Buildout, but should we at this point
This is
also look at
existing
the?
conditions.
Should we also look at the current relationship of slopes to building heights, current building heights? Because later on, we look at it as a build-out, as a study.
When you say slopes, do you mean roadway grades, Sabrina? Describe existing slopes.
Okay, this
or-
is not Sabrina's scope. Just let's clarify that, it's not my outline.
But do they mean
but-
roadway grades?
No, I really mean the slopes that the buildings are on.
Describe existing
Yeah,
slopes.
Land
I
slopes.
think they're talking about, as the land
Which is gonna
butts
be-
up to it.
Which may be very different from the road.
Right.
Yeah, it's different than the roadway grade.
Sorry about that.
I want to go back on the previous, on C,
No backseats.
right, C2, let's be quick.
To-
C2AII.
It's always quick.
Please change IE to EG. With the.
I haven't looked that up in my phone. IEG. Hold on.
EG is
We
for
could have-
example.
Example.
One of them only has one
IE
period.
is that
Which
is.
one is that? I think it's ID. I'm not sure if it's, anyway.
Okay. Are we set on D, natural resources, anything there?
Just a picky thing. D to AI.
Where?
D, natural resources.
E,
D to
to-
AI.
okay,
You know, AI, artificial intelligence. And so it says, provide mapping of vegetative communities and study area using existing available sources.
including trees?
Um,
Include trees.
Okay. Those will be, I would think,
It should
a
here.
MapQuest or
Is
something
that
like
better
that.
including trees?
Include,
Yeah. I don't see why that you would change that.
And then take the
Existing.
parentheses, why is existing available sources?
I'd take-
I think that was a note to Sabrina, that she may have just put a note in for herself.
I don't know, but existing
No.
available
Nope.
sources.
Using existing available.
it must have been a comment of somebody,
Right.
although it's not
I-
highlighted.
Yeah, I would just say existing
Can we take
sources.
the parentheses out?
Yeah, I guess it's okay the way it is. I'd put the parentheses, though, at the end of trees.
I redid that.
Thank you. All right, next page is D, and 3 is where it starts.
Mhm.
And I have 3AII. Identify development areas constrained by regulated wetlands and wetland buffers. It's not a choice of or.
In this area, this is really a question. It describes impacts and mitigation. This is pretty important stuff, and this is regulated by our code. Shouldn't there be a section here about avoidance strategies before we go into mitigation?
This is mitigation of the impacts of this. And if you want to say specifically avoid, minimize, mitigate,
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe that's a mitigation, but I think really, when we always look at it, we look at avoidance first. And now we're talking about something that's really regulated here. This is, the wetlands and water courses.
Wetlands are critical.
Yeah, so I think, one of the first things we have to look at is, what happens when we look at avoidance first? That may carve out so much of the downtown that it's a real problem. Then we have to look at mitigation. So I think avoidance should be put in here.
It is,
Perhaps as
avoid,
C, and then maybe mitigation D.
well, I think it's mitigation, and within the mitigation is avoid, minimize, mitigate.
Okay, so you just
Okay.
have to add that, and then you add it to
Yeah.
all of them, and we're all set.
It's in there that way.
Good. Okay, so now we're on E, infrastructure and utilities. We've got stormwater, water supply.
Well, on 4, in that section,
Jumping on down.
yes, we're really cruising now.
Energy use.
Yep, existing conditions. I
You
don't
added
know.
this last time.
What's that?
This is your
Yeah,
wording.
but one of the other issues is, I don't know where we are with the moratorium with Con Edison.
Yeah, we have information on that.
So
from the
that'll be
consultant
part of the
team.
study?
Yep,
Okay.
yep. That's why this is in here.
And I guess it's not really mitigation so much as C. Don't you think it might be possible limitations or potential limitations?
Yeah, we don't know.
Right, but I think that should be, I guess mitigation's one thing, but I think mitigation and possible or potential limitations. I think that, like parking is gonna be
Impacts, yeah.
impacts, call it,
We'll
impacts
put
or
it in there.
limitations? Because I think it's, that could be one of those firewalls that really thwarts development.
Right, like under B4BI, impacts to existing energy system, will natural gas connections be available? I think that kind of speaks to the limitations. What are,
Yep, I think you're right.
what
Yeah,
energy
if they were-
systems are gonna be available
Yep.
for use?
If they were gonna do multifamily housing, they would wanna do it in natural gas.
Yeah,
Yeah, if they couldn't, that would be a hard lift
Yeah.
to do it with all fuel.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I think it's another one of those
I mean,
non-starters.
the ovens and the dryers you could do as electricity, but heating, it would,
For-
yeah, that'd be tough.
Sabrina,
You do the-
4B,
The other thing, you could do the interruptible, but you've gotta have a big,
Oh, I know,
I-
yeah.
big facility to
no,
have some of this stuff.
IE with a comma, please.
Okay,
I have to say, I never knew that.
What?
really?
I.E. comma.
Yeah, you always put a comment.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Listen,
It's
we
the King's
talked about
English.
E.G., I.E., and
Yeah,
whatever.
and there's,
I before E.
if I really could remember
No.
properly, I'd make the, even more, there's a bigger change. You know, it's one of these four dots between IE and EG. I think one of them disappears if you go really,
Really?
really. I don't know which one. It's not
I
the
can
second
look
one.
it up.
It's the
Are we
first.
following Chicago manual style?
I'll bring Strunk and White next time.
Nah, this is old Roman.
Well, I will look.
It's the original Latin.
It is
That's the way I was
it is-
taught
listen, it
long
is-
ago.
It is the most often referenced book in my office.
All right, cool.
I'm not lying. All right,
I
moving
think
on.
we can get through it.
Yep.
You think?
F,
F, okay.
F, J, I would just insert, I think it's implied, but certainly insert the word current, overall current parking areas in the study area.
F where?
It's actually J.
Provide inventory of current.
Parking areas, right. And I say that because somewhere in here, and I don't know where, but I didn't see it, maybe it's in here. But again, this issue that the study is at no net loss of parking, somewhere in here, based on some of these assumptions and some sort of level of build-out, we have to have some sort of projected needs for parking. And I'm not sure where it goes, but it has got to be in here somewhere.
I'm curious, okay. I remember seeing it somewhere, but I don't know which
Isn't
version
it
it
under
was in.
anticipated impacts?
Should be.
Trip generation.
You know, they're talking about chip generation.
Yeah, and that was going to help us, I think, but I don't see it actually in here.
Discuss,
Right.
There's I, discussion of revised parking ratios, assumptions of changes.
And there's G that says calculate the additional on-street parking that would occur, which is, it's already maxed out now.
Yeah.
There's none that's going to occur. So I would say, identify the on-street parking demand that would result from the build-out, or could, result. The key here, I think, is capturing some idea what that demand is going to be. And I think that is a real important issue in this whole study.
What page are we on, by the way?
Well, I think it's 12 of
We're on
ours,
F, yeah, 12 for us.
which is going to be
I
section.
added a new K, identification of build-out parking demand.
Yep,
Good.
and that goes back to the other information that is under the various assumptions.
Yes.
Okay.
Why are we doing this between 1 and 3 p.m.? Is that when the peak shopping time is?
Where are you?
Where's the 1 and 3 p.m.?
I'm
Conduct a
sorry.
parking survey of all
It's
parking
K.
in the study area on Monday or Tuesday between 1 and 3.
Because there is, in order to determine utilization and whether or not there's availability for utilization for example, residential properties using town parking facilities, what is the availability between 1 and 3? It's not, that's the afternoon that traffic consultants do the utilization analysis
Well,
on a Monday or Tuesday.
of course, but if you take Saturday, you can't get a parking space.
Correct.
You know, not in the center, but you can in the,
Yep.
you know, in the other lot. So can you, how do we find out what this is? This is what they like to do because it gives them a great answer? And how do you define
I don't think
great?
we're after great answers here. I have to stress that. We are not after great answers. We're after the facts.
So to,
a great
so-
answer
Talking
can
about
have to be a
different times
fact.
on the
but
worst
to
time.
your point, then, you would want to
Time
see
element.
alternative studies?
I would-
Study times, like Saturday, for example?
I'm not a traffic guy, so I don't really,
Yeah, I
What
don't,
does it say, 1 to 3?
nor am I, so. I don't-
Conduct
there
a
it is right
parking
there.
survey.
I don't know what,
All right.
it just struck me
Why-
as
Yeah, where
very
did it come up with 1
specific.
to 3?
Yes.
I don't know. Why?
Justify the 1 to 3.
Yeah, my comment was here, why these times?
So then
Provide
let's put this in
justification.
here. Why these times? 'Cause
Okay.
I can't answer you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
traffic likes to do weekday during the day, weekday at night, and then Saturdays.
Correct.
Those are usually when they
Those
do
are the
traffic
biggest times,
studies,
right?
right? And sometimes they get specific for like Friday night over a Tuesday night, because Friday night more people go out.
Yeah,
But,
I don't think that's enough.
but 1 to 3 in the middle of a Tuesday's,
You need a school peak.
it's just gonna give you
morning,
one
afternoon.
segment of data.
Usually at least 2 or 3
Two or
Yeah,
three
maybe
days.
they do one like at 6 o'clock at
In the
night for
morning.
when people,
in the evening,
Yep, you need
and
a-
Saturdays.
And then Saturdays? Okay.
Yeah.
So Sabrina, did you catch any of that, or all of it? All is better. Bob doesn't have to
No, I
repeat
just-
himself then.
That Bob.
you know, Sabrina's deep breaths are just say so much.
What you do,
So,
How's that computer work?
I've found
Monday
that taking
through-
deep breaths, I can lower my blood pressure 15 points. And so I try and do it more often than I used to.
does that work for cholesterol?
Pardon me?
Does that work for cholesterol?
So we have different, different peaks, then, morning peak, evening peak,
Yeah.
Saturday peak, afternoon peak.
And that, well, that's for traffic, but would it be parking also? Because, you know, a lot of the traffic is
peak
people
times
leaving the
for
parking lots.
parking.
All I can figure out is maybe the traffic engineers figure out to do parking at different times, but I can't see why.
I don't know,
They
the
would
cars
do
are
the same.
traveling to get someplace to park.
Yeah,
Listen, why
Why they
these
go there
times,
too.
look at the board, why these times, Monday through Friday and Saturday, peak times for parking.
Good.
Parking? Parking, yeah, got it. Okay, I agree. That's good, thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Good.
Yeah, but those words won't be used again in about an hour.
No,
It's only 8:45, folks.
I know.
Still early.
Are we finished here?
No, I think
No.
the other issue, another issue, and I'm not sure where you put it, perhaps in 3, mitigation. But certainly somewhere, we have to have, whatever that peak parking demand is, clearly you have to have some sort of understanding what the costs are gonna be. So if you need X more parking, what are the costs gonna be, both capital, long-term, as well as short-term, and maintenance, et cetera?
You have to spell out specifically whether parking garages are needed, or that's all implied?
That gets,
It's implied, but I don't think you can necessarily conclude that's going to be the solution. So I think you need to consider the alternative of without, and that's why I've always been saying, I've been talking a lot about requiring parking on-site for any new development, in
Well, don't
case.
you have that as a, look,
Later
you
on, yeah,
commented,
later on.
describe a requirement to maintain parking on site.
Yes,
And
but
then we
that's-
have impacts of needed parking, cost.
Yep.
Cost.
Even with on-site parking, whatever that requirement is, if you have a blend of commercial and residential, you still are gonna see some commercial off-site on-street parking demand increase. Could be difficult to put everything inside, but, especially with our soils. So again, I think somewhere, there needs to be some sort of understanding at some point in this study about those costs.
What about shared parking? I think that'd be something you may need, based on use of.
Oh, absolutely.
Construction.
I
See
think
the
that's in here,
parking-
though.
Describe parking initiatives and solutions, including
Yeah, that's in
on-site
here.
parking and parking structure as part of a parking toolbox.
Yep.
Just a question.
So I would maybe B1, costs associated with these strategies.
Parking
Wouldn't cost
initiatives,
be
wait a minute.
an issue for, all the mitigation stuff? Because first you try to
Yes.
avoid it, and then if you mitigate, we want to know the mitigation cost on everything, so she can do it universally.
Yeah,
'Cause we didn't-
probably we can blend that into the mitigation, as Jennifer had said, on the other aspect of it, yeah.
But as you know, parking structures are very expensive.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
guys- Greg would know.
Yeah.
Great.
Very expensive.
I
In
didn't,
his memo, he talked about it and told us, gave us all the shocking,
So glad we had
Information.
advantage of seeing that.
I didn't see it mentioned here, but I'm just asking, maybe it's understood, but in this section of parking, they don't talk about commuter parking, maintaining it. So we know that it has to get studied, but I didn't see in here the 1,300 spots, making sure, or 1,400 spots, making sure that that gets counted. Is it obvious that they're gonna count it?
I would assume so, yes.
Okay, I just didn't see it listed anywhere, and because if they just were to eliminate that, that really makes a big difference.
Big revenue with.
So this is what I'm gonna do to, up here,
I guess under existing conditions, it would be,
let's just go on up here.
oh, you're going way early.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Jennifer, on that sheet that I gave you, can we give that to Felicia and she can make a copy of it?
Yeah,
so
I'll
that
give her
They
one.
have it?
Yeah.
You have my copy.
Keep it. I mean, that's, for you guys to have.
Yeah, I'll
Make
go
a
make-
copy of it, and then I can reprint another copy, it's no problem.
I'll go make copies.
As I was typing this, I asked myself yesterday, should we be copying others? So,
Well, it was conversations
Yeah.
one-to-one, frankly, it was not.
Are we finished with F?
It's in
I
here
think we're
under
to G.
assumptions.
Okay,
You're at the G, right?
Okay.
cultural resources.
In G1, A, V, who's designated the small firehouse a historic site?
Is that the Chappaqua Firehouse on?
Center Street, yeah, going into Bell School.
Is that considered by
Or I believe it was considered by
Gray,
them.
by Gray Williams?
Yes,
Gray Williams?
I believe so.
He's the guy that determines all that.
Well, that's
Historical.
interesting because I believe the fire department was going to abandon that building when they built the new building.
Right, as part of the deal.
They knock it down?
But I don't think
Well,
they were
sell
gonna
it,
knock
I
it
think.
down.
I thought they were gonna reuse it.
They were looking
reuse
at
it.
repurposing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To
Right.
stay a firehouse.
You're right.
Yeah, they were gonna take the fire truck out of there, I think,
They
move
were
it to the
going to
one.
remove the fire equipment from the building and
Keep it,
repurpose
but
the
keep the
building,
building,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes.
they're not gonna knock it down.
That's right, because the historic aspect to me is, it's what's inside it that is 100 years old, or something like that. It's not the building, I don't think. I don't think the
Well,
building.
it's not a historic building, but it has significant historical value to some. We can
It's a
take it
cultural
off.
resource.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't just if it's listed on the historical site.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it requires a phone call to the fire department.
Here, let's just put a big question mark
Yep.
around it, okay?
The only issue I'd raise on that is to the extent that that starts to set it into something that counter to the fire department's plans. My understanding is they're thinking of selling it.
Yeah.
And then it would be repurposed, obviously, to a purchaser. And if you designate it as a historic
It's not
designation.
designated through this at all. The question
okay.
is whether or not it is
Good,
worthy
okay.
to be on this list in this form as a cultural resource. It may
Okay.
not. I have questioned it.
But it raises another question in my mind, and I don't know where this goes exactly, is that if you repurpose that little area, you might try and put up a tall building there. And that's, I don't know how to deal with that, because a tall building there with vehicles coming out, with all the moms bringing their kids into Bell School, it's gonna be a real traffic jam, a real mess. And why would you have, kids running out of those buildings and going to Bell School when they're that age with all the cars? So it's kind of like, That's an interesting strip of land there that has to be looked at somehow carefully. Center Street. Because of that, okay. I'm on the next page.
H, so we set forth existing conditions, anticipated impacts. What I think is missing here and needs to be articulated is the needs. Needs. So we've heard over and over that we need a community service center. Well, we have the demands here. I guess it's in two. Because you generically
Okay.
say, yeah, impacts and/or demands.
Where's the word demands?
The second line, anticipated impacts based on the build-out scenario,
Thank you.
which should be alternative building scenarios, provide a discussion of the potential impacts and/or demands to each of these. You know, again, it's static, so it speaks to only the existing facilities. And I think what we heard from the community was that there is need for either enhancement, improvement, or expansion of these public facilities, or the demand for the public uses of these facilities. So,
Well, it's not just talking about a facility. It says impacts and/or demands to each of these community services. I can put community services and facilities.
Yep.
Yep, because that's in H.
Yep,
in
community
title.
service, yeah, community services or facilities.
And,
Yeah, and/or.
Could we get listed as another after maybe H, as I, a pool? Or is that considered
Well,
part
it's
of
not
the community
existing.
center?
it's part of, it's not.
But I think that's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah, I
was
know
it-
that's where you're trying to get
And
to,
that's
yeah.
very specific. I don't know if I would go that specific, but again, we talked in terms, or I talked in terms of a public asset. Whatever that might be.
Like a community pool,
Yeah, or expanded community center, or, you know,
or a rec
Can we
center with a pool.
just say community center kind of covers the breadth of everything that would be included in a community center?
In the center, but not
We can
necessarily
all say
out of it,
that.
like
I don't know if others would.
yep,
There's no pool here now.
no,
I know, well, yes,
No
there is.
existing.
Her name is Ivy.
Or maybe the town needs a pool.
Shame on you, don't know that?
And where do you think we could fit it in the hamlet on privately held property?
Publicly.
Yes, but this is not a project to disseminate publicly held property
I
for
understand
public
that.
good.
I understand that. But if you don't study something,
But
then you
but if
never-
we are studying something such as the use of public property and we are looking at a community center, the use of a pool would be attached to the community center or a public pool on town-held property. It would have less traffic than housing,
well, maybe.
maybe.
And that's the issue, I think. To Greg's point, I think what is appropriate is, again, we've said this before, is to study what the impacts might be with a generic public asset, whatever that might
Correct.
be.
So I can put pool in here.
I wouldn't put pool, frankly, this public asset, or,
Public destination.
yeah, public asset, fine.
Sure.
Yeah, and Sheila still thinks that Tom's layout of the town that he did with the pool is fantastic,
yeah.
as of yesterday.
Except it's on private property.
Yeah,
A
private
little
property.
tough to do.
I have a question up above on H.
Hang on a minute.
I could have sworn years ago they were talking about like a cinema.
Well, thank goodness they didn't, because they're all closing down, but yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, you'd have to do something, like Jacob Burns. But how can you compete with them? They're only three miles
Yeah,
away, or 2
right.
miles away.
It's so difficult, and you really have to hear from the community as to what they really
Yep.
would want.
Yeah, they had something I saw a study years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think a pool would be great.
I think a
And some
pool is a
people
good
probably
idea.
think a rodeo would be great. I don't
It was
know.
a better idea than the cinema.
Yeah, yeah.
Who
Decades.
thinks that?
So,
Pardon?
Who thinks a pool's better than a cinema?
I just said that.
the pool is great, potentially.
Okay,
or
all
do
right,
you-
we're talking about
Right.
things that are not relevant to an
Exactly.
outline. I
H,
added community traction as a
Yep.
J.
Yep.
thank you. I'm back up on H1. Why did we say, sort of in this parenthetical comment, include most recent enrollment projections and capacities if available. Of course they're available. Why would they not be available?
We just received them, right? In connection with Chapel Hill Crossing. We just gave the town board all kinds of information.
Okay. Hi, any comments?
Okay.
I3A, describe threshold issues. Again, I would substitute benefits and costs related to these.
Avoidance, benefits,
But not
mitigation.
just issues. I think issues is too broad. I think we really want to, I would think that we would want the consultants to drill down.
And I think that, that would be the generic thing she has for mitigation throughout.
Yep, could be, yep.
Jay?
Yeah, this, some little small stuff, in 1, 2, 3, third line, I would say, public available and that are relating to existing and potential remediation sites,
Relating to existing,
and potential remediation.
what's a potential remediation site?
An old dry cleaner that's been in business there for 30 years, and, or 50 years.
But it has not yet been determined by DEC to be a remediation site?
Correct.
Well, as you know, when we did this project here, we hit 300 tons
In the road?
of material. Had to be removed by DEC.
Right here, for this, the
In
town
this
hall?
project, oh, yes.
Oh, the streets, sidewalks and streets, yeah.
That is
Yeah,
correct.
right,
So,
for
I
the
mean,
gas
when
station.
when they're doing new work in this town, Lord only knows
Yeah.
how much you're gonna hit.
And so
Yeah.
that has, there has
That
to
should
be,
definitely be looked at, that's a big item,
yeah,
that's a big item.
okay. Air quality and noise. That's K. Ooh. Can't believe we're gonna get done with
Okay.
this evening, that's
Why would you think you wouldn't?
amazing.
We muddle through.
Well, I came in with hope, it only took an hour and a half on an hour meeting last time, so I was, well, maybe it'll be an hour and a half. Okay, K1. I would put EG
Where?
right on the second line after in the parentheses.
E.g. delivery and loading?
Yeah, I mean, there are other things, that would probably factor into it, like, generators. But they're not that bad an issue, but some people have them. Yeah, okay, so, but e.g., C, provide a qualitative description of existing air quality data. If it's data, it's quantitative. If there's no data, then it's qualitative, which is akin to scientific guess.
Opinion.
Yeah.
It's a narrative.
A wag.
So take out the data, or?
I would take,
Qualitative.
yeah, I
Put
would,
in quantitative.
Quantitative.
Just put in
yeah.
quantitative.
Well, you could just take it out and
Yeah,
just,
you don't need it.
This data means quantitative.
Yeah.
because I really,
I'm with you, Dick.
okay, all right. And I think that you need to do testing. If the data is, it depends on the age of the data and what it was and what they look for. It may be that there are more factors than there were 20 years ago when the data was made, so,
So you want me to add and conduct testing?
yes, as appropriate. And the issues are basically, fossil fuel emissions.
Which we added in here,
I know.
just for you.
Thank you. You're so kind.
I listen.
for EG. She added that.
Okay, on the next page, under K2D, changes in air. Is that like hot air during a political thing? What kind of air is that? Air quality? Okay.
Air quality's gonna be impacted by height increases?
Yeah.
Air quality? Light, I understand, but air quality?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's,
Wasn't this the air circulation
Oh.
and, it's air
So it's air
circulation.
circulation, then, okay.
air-
Light is important, but,
Air circulation and light.
yeah, okay. Air circulation makes sense.
well, and natural light, not just light.
Right, correct.
Natural light.
Yep.
We need natural light for solar. We need natural light for, health purposes, vitamin D,
Yep.
that kind of stuff. And it just makes it a better community.
Because all that sunscreen we wear is helping that issue.
Outbreak of scurvy.
Then you have don't forget, you have the no natural gas.
Yes.
Here, earlier, I'm not sure, and nobody seems to be sure as to what is the status of it,
Right,
for
it
natural-
was identified to include the existing status earlier.
Right, right.
Yeah. All right, so,
Do you want to further describe the valley?
well, the valley is, it's complicated in a way. If you have a 5 or 6 story building, the air pollution gets up. But if you have 1,000 additional cars, you have a lot of ground level stuff.
So it's really the existing natural valley, because you're actually, if you build out, you really could create an additional valley that captures more within the buildings.
Yeah, so it's discuss changes in air quality and natural light with the build-out throughout the study area, something like that. It's not just height, it's the build-out. You're gonna have more fuel, more cars.
Yeah, but we're in the energy section.
No, we're in K, which
Is air
is
quality
air
and
quality
noise.
and noise.
Right, it says discussion of energy limitations, no natural gas impacts on air quality in the valley. That was your comment from last week.
Discussion.
So like the impacts of using fuel oil
If you
instead
had
of
to use
natural
oil.
gas?
And would that settle in the bowl?
Well, it's, okay, then we definitely have to,
Technical term.
say that, get the changes we talked about on D, which is just for the whole project, what's gonna be the impact. It's not with height increase, it's with the whole build-out. All right, and so, okay. Fine. All right, I'm done.
Anyone else?
Was that a change?
No, I think she has it already.
Okay, okay.
Right?
Yes, it's all in here, Dick.
Yeah.
I got it.
She's almost up to, the speed of
Wait,
light. Yeah, there you go.
You left me in the dust on it, so I was trying to catch up.
I was with him to some extent.
Right. Okay.
To some extent.
So then we go to Roman numeral 4, right, alternatives. Not quite sure why we have no action twice, but in A,
I mean, no action twice.
H has no action also.
yeah, H is no action also.
Because you guys were not happy with the no action last time, so I had to write it in here for you.
I'm still not happy with it. I think it should be not no action, but no change in existing code.
That's no action.
Okay, but it says no new development, then we have parenthetically, no new development in the hamlet. That is a very big presumption that you're not going to see any development at all under the current code. So I thought that when I saw no action, that meant there was not going to be any additional development, and I think that's not a good
I'm
assumption.
gonna erase that.
It's not realistic.
No, it's not realistic.
Right.
So it should, I mean, that's why I say
Yeah,
no
no.
change in code, and therefore, what do they anticipate the development will be or could be under the existing code? If they come back and say none, that's fine too, but, let them study it, tell us.
This is sensitive.
And then perhaps we can do away with H.
Okay.
All of each?
Yeah, no action. Kind of redundant.
Okay. What happened?
You took it out.
No, but this messed up.
Control Z.
There we go.
So
Go
in-
up top and hit the arrow to redo.
Yeah,
I
redo
did it.
up on left.
It's all good. I just
So-
have to delete.
When we talk in C, D, E, F, probably G. Yep, G. What do we mean when we say full build out? Under what assumption? Full build out of, including, full build out of all commercial?
Yeah, whatever is
permitted?
studied above, as the code allows.
But that would be a reduction therefore in what you have available for residential. I'm not sure that the impacts are identical, I suspect they're not. So if you fully build out and you don't put any more commercial in, even though it's permitted, but you build instead residential, which seems to be the way developers want to build,
Well, you
what
would
happens
put
then?
commercial in where commercial is mandated.
that's a public property. That's only-
No, it is not. It's mandated on private property too. There's an area that is identified as.
Is that up
ha-
on North Greeley?
It is, a little bit on North Greeley, but not the entirety of North Greeley.
Right.
But it's Lower King Street, it's
Yeah, you could build,
Greeley, South Greeley. It's like the existing commercial center.
Okay, but to the extent that that is mandated in anything that comes forward in the future, my understanding is that it's still permitted anywhere in the district. So what does that build out? And
It
then
probably, yeah, but there is, again, getting back to the assumptions that are being made, you have to go back to the assumptions for the.
That's what I'm saying. And that's exactly what I'm saying, because those assumptions have to be carried forward in each one of these as subclasses, it seems to me, because we know that the parking ratios between residential and commercial are different for the same space.
Right.
So if you assume it's built out, one way at 3 stories and, 4 stories and 5 stories, I think you need to look at it in the alternative for both a build-out all residential, a build-out all commercial, where permitted, and then frankly, what's realistic? So it's really 3 options. Because again, and you'll see in Tom's comment, and he doesn't have a solution, but he's saying, how can we make this more, it's the last one, by the way, because it was the first one in the chain. How can we make this whole exercise with this GEIS more helpful to the town board and to developers in terms of coming up with what we think is a realistic solution and market conditions and otherwise? Greg talks in his note about some of the stops that you're going to come across.
Yeah, I did an alternate plan.
Of course you do.
I have,
So you can study that.
Is it here?
It's in there?
Is it in here?
Of course you did.
I have another couple of questions. Under,
Well, wait a minute, are we done with the scope?
no,
Unless other people have comments on it.
I have some.
I'm
Well,
worn
we
out.
have a memo too, to go
Yes.
through.
Yeah. Okay, under V, for victory, I guess.
Yes,
Significant adverse environmental impacts that cannot be avoided if the proposed action is implemented. Cannot be avoided, but can be mitigated? This sort of sounds like, well,
where does it say it can be mitigated?
Doesn't.
it doesn't.
Right, it's long-term impacts and short-term impacts.
Well,
This
yeah,
is
but it
standard.
says significant adverse environmental impacts that cannot be avoided. Well, of course they can be avoided. You mitigate, or you say you can't do it.
There's not like, open space. Like what if you have, you've got a certain requirement for open space and, you're gonna develop a site. You're gonna use up certain open space on that site.
Well, that can be mitigated.
Sort of like irreversible impacts. This phrase comes directly from the secret regulations, and it's a required heading to have in
That's
the.
too bad. Okay, and my last one, hopefully, is, my sense is if they're gonna build a lot of big things going up the hill and they're gonna look for parking and that, there's gonna be a lot of blasting that's done, because the hill is a lot of rock. So, how does that, is there any way we can put that into this?
Well, and also, there's something,
Well,
It's
mitigation
not in
could be no
yours, 'cause
blasting,
you didn't
only chipping,
discuss-
And then chipping is also bad.
yeah, but,
Okay, so you take one out of this and you put it in the noise one.
I think it's so tight in this area, the only option would be to chip. How would you, no way to be able to blast.
Yeah, I think
With
you're-
the infrastructure, the water main.
Oh, yeah,
I
that's
think
true
you're
too.
cracking.
Right.
Yeah,
It
well,
would have to be
that's-
chipping,
Yeah.
Where can we put that in? That ban blasting on this?
absolutely.
you've already come to the conclusion, Dick. We need to ban blasting. That's amazing.
Well, just in this area, this,
You're doing the analysis already.
we'd like to do that.
Well, we could study blasting.
You can study the blasting.
Well,
have them
here's
Put
one
a
of,
section in there.
we need to incorporate a section in here, because I've also heard it from the public, and it hasn't been done yet, about construction impact.
Yes.
And so maybe the blasting comes.
And chipping. Yeah, but you
Chipping.
can put.
Rock management, handling,
Oh, that rocks.
management, right?
Right,
Rock
yeah.
We'll
removal,
put that in construction impacts.
like stormwater management.
Do you
rock
wanna
removal.
add it now, or do you,
I think just construction process, construction sequence, scheduling should all be,
well, I don't know, we can go so far as
Scheduling's
construction
tough. This might be done over
scheduling.
10 years.
no, I'm saying for any given project, that we set parameters and say you really can't disrupt the public more than, I don't know.
Yeah, but
I
we
mean,
have
we
all of
can't do
that in our
now,
code
obviously, yeah,
today.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find the location within this table of contents that we.
So we could just say
That's
construction impacts, right?
construction
Yeah.
impacts.
Leave it at that.
Right?
Yes.
And then
Is it? in-
mitigation fits very nicely in that as something.
Yep. That would work. Wherever it is.
We're gonna have to create a new,
Well, the word construction was used once.
I'm surprised it
I
wasn't
tried
in
to,
as a
I tried
standard.
to do it, I need to find it.
Usually that's
Well,
a
I think
standard.
it's a very important subject to have in there.
I
Truck
agree.
impacts to the
Yeah.
roads.
Sure.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Construction, yes, or road interruption, I mean, it's all part and parcel, I guess, under that construction process
Yes.
impacts.
I'm surprised it's not usually a standard.
Yeah, construction impacts to
Absolutely.
existing infrastructure and quality of life. Something like that.
So let's do a new G and call it construction impacts.
Then you have to change H and I and J.
It's automatic.
No,
You sure about that?
I was
Under what,
fine.
Like,
alternatives?
is it like a subset of like air
That's
quality?
only if you
and
don't
noise?
hit
Construction's-
space.
Usually construction's the last one,
Yeah, okay.
so make it the last one.
Are you saying Roman numeral, make that Roman numeral 5 and make,
No, it'd be like a K,
Right.
LMNO.
Right.
It's KL,
under what?
under
Its own
the,
thing.
Under alternatives?
No,
yeah.
Four alternatives, so it'd have it'd be L, its own
Oh.
special group.
Okay.
category.
Oh, I see, oh, yeah, oh, okay, I got it, okay.
Construction
Yep.
impacts.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a big enough topic, it should get its own.
Yeah, so,
Yes, yeah.
hours,
Traffic,
Traffic impacts to the roadway
Traffic.
system.
Staging,
Noise, air
noise,
quality,
Infrastructure
impacts
protection,
to
existing,
roadways.
existing
erosion sediment
infrastructure
control.
protection.
It's
New York
it's a
State.
long
It's,
list.
it like covers almost
Existing.
every
Yeah.
of the
Town
preceding
permits.
topics.
Infrastructure,
Would DEP be involved?
protection.
Depending on the impacts to the road, yes. Possible street opening permits from DPW, DOT.
That's a process, though, that's not.
Exactly, we don't have to go, I don't think we have
Hours,
to table
traffic,
it.
Staging?
road, rock,
Oh, yeah.
Staging's red.
rock
Guess what? We have it in our cover memo.
Rock
removal.
removal, staging.
Staging area.
Commuting.
So take those words.
Yeah,
Take the
you
words out of the
could go
cover
on
memo.
all night with this one.
Erosion and sediment
It's
control.
item 4 in the cover memo.
Yes, I know I included it for you, just not sure where it would go in the, I covered all bases.
Okay, let's see if we can find it.
Where was that number?
Air. Noise, air, what was that?
Erosion and sediment control, not intended necessarily to be all in the same.
Whatever.
Etc.
Just leave it in here.
Materials?
I'll look at it later.
Yeah.
No, we had it already.
There was a cover memo that was sent to them. Okay, let me save this.
Didn't get it?
Cover memo?
Yeah. The top sheet.
And here is your memo. Dated for tomorrow, although I think we're gonna change this and put it out at the 20th.
Yeah, I think that would be fair.
Okay.
Well, I would certainly want, and which would be, I think, number one, and that is a regurgitation of some of the things that I was talking about before in terms of the overall goal, making sure that the vitality and energy of the hamlet is really the goal, and that these various strategies are tools to enhance that overall goal.
So do you want me to extract from your write-up? I mean, here's the thing, I haven't had the advantage of reading this before tonight. I can read this and redraft your cover memo.
Yeah.
Is there anything that is currently written in the cover memo that you want to change or disagree with?
What's the conifer building?
Chapel Station, it's the building
At the
next
bridge.
to
Housing.
Right on the corner,
the bridge.
the affordable housing.
Oh, my goodness.
It's not built yet, but
It's
under
under construction.
Is it gonna be built in our lifetime?
Yeah,
I
it's
know- I
under
know this
construction
started.
right now. It
Steel
should
is
be
up.
Finished
built
a year
this
ago.
year.
Oh,
Yeah,
they're
so
looking to get
so's the
CO.
building on the top of the
Steel
hill.
is
That,
up.
the
Yeah,
green
the
one,
steel.
that's
Talking to Tom about
been
it.
under construction now
Right,
for
it's nice.
months.
yes.
With no, money is probably a problem somewhere. Who knows?
I have a question. Would people object to just getting rid of suburban and going with Hamlet?
Yes, I agree with you. I would say hamlet or village. I would not use.
Or
suburban.
village?
I like village myself.
Suburban, I think, is too broad, you know?
I agree with taking out suburban.
I like village.
We're not a village, that's the,
No, it should be called, I think Hamlet is what they're called.
Hamlet is-
Yeah, Hamlet,
Yeah, the
I thought was
Hamlet
the
of
way to go,
Chapel,
but-
the Hamlet of Millwood.
Yeah, we are Hamlet.
We're not a
We're
village.
not a
Technically,
village.
we're not
Not
a
a
village.
village.
we're not a village. Okay, but I agree totally with Bob that
So am I putting Hamlet or village or just Hamlet?
I'd say
Hamlet.
Just hamlet.
Hamlet.
I mean, we are
Bob,
Hamlet.
is it
Hamlet.
Bob?
Confusing otherwise.
No, it's not my memo.
Okay.
just remember, in the past, he screwed up a lot of things, that guy Hamlet. So,
He didn't make it out alive either.
well, that's kind of
All
a
right.
major one.
Moving on, anything else in the memo?
You got his, you gotta
Yes.
move that, because that's really a
Important,
good one.
yes.
Where did 3 come from?
It was not one of our big things, but I think it was mentioned somewhere.
You guys mentioned it, I wouldn't have put it in your cover memo if you didn't. I don't have my notes
It-
from
it
that
Just have
meeting.
to have a rendering of the building, I must have stepped out of the room when that one came up. I have no recollection of why we would need a rendering of the conifer building in it. Anyone?
Yeah, I think it's a small thing compared to
I
the other
agree,
ones.
yeah.
So
You
let-
wanna take it out?
Yes,
I didn't make up your memo.
I wasn't
I do
implying you
remember
I
did.
have one vote for take it
I
out.
do remember that being.
I vote to take it out.
Okay, we need a third vote, because
That's fine. Take it out.
that's fine, that's close enough to take it out.
Yes, let's close it up.
All right,
That's all I can muster at this point.
Look, there's construction impacts.
Hey, you do have it.
Yes,
there.
construction's in here, yeah, it's good.
What else?
But you're gonna augment construction, right?
What do you mean?
Well, this is timing and,
E.g.,
yeah, well, but I think the important thing is that, interference with normal activities, town activities, or I don't know, something like that. That gets to the issue of, well, how you're gonna do the construction type of thing down the road.
so
not right
is
now.
et cetera not effective enough in this sentence?
What's that?
ETC, et cetera?
I'm okay with that.
Do you even need
Well-
3 because you've added it to the scoping document?
Well, I want to highlight it needs a separate call-out.
My problem with it is that all of the things there are soft in a way. Effect on commutation is
I added rock removal just now.
What about the soil,
perfect.
subsurface
I'm done,
soils?
rock removal.
Geotech,
What?
Yeah, geotech issues
it's gonna
is
be the
good.
biggest problem in this town.
Geotech, because in some
Soils
places
are
you're gonna be in a
horrible.
swamp, and the other place you're gonna be on rock.
Oh, no doubt.
Geotech is the right answer.
It's
Thank
either
you,
rock
Robert.
or soils, right? Geotech report.
Technical issues.
Well, I think overall, the memo should set forth, this discussion, sum it up and just say, look, particular observations have been incorporated in the revised scope, but I think we should really hit the things that really are important on a policy basis in the memo, because that's our chance to say, this is what's really important to the scope. And again, I emphasizing the vitality, et cetera, but the other issue is, and I'm still uncomfortable with some of this language in the document itself in the very beginning, because it seems to me it's basically saying that, aha, this is it, form-based zoning code. And I think to Sabrina's comment during our discussion, this is a study to see whether or not this form-based code ultimately supports the overall goal. So I think there's a little bit of a presumption in some of the language here in the very beginning that presumes that this is the answer, that we're going forward. But I really like what Sabrina said at one point, where it's, we don't know. And the whole process is really to find out whether or not this is the way to go, and whether it does support all those the goals that we're seeking, and all these tools that we have. So I don't know if that makes sense to others, but I think that's really important. I happen to think that this form-based code is going to be could be a very useful tool for supporting those goals. But what I fear is that it dies after that. And I guess I want to, for myself, I think it's important to emphasize that I think this is just a step and one of the tools in an ongoing process to revitalize the hamlets, the hamlet, Chappaqua Hamlet right now.
Well, it's not only revitalize, but make it a destination.
Well, that's part of it. Yeah. Exactly, that was one of the things that we heard. And that was, it will become a destination if you revitalize it, or vice versa.
If you revitalize it correctly,
Correct, that's correct.
as opposed to just
Yep.
bring it back to where it was.
Well, whatever that was. vice versa.
Well,
What does that mean?
Well,
It still
right
is.
now.
It
well,
still
it's-
is what is.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me rephrase it. Bring it back to where it is, or keep it where it is.
Right.
Revitalize it.
Right.
I paint on this or something.
Yeah, but I think, yeah, exactly. I think what we heard during that whole process was that there was, maybe dissatisfaction is too strong a word, but maybe it's not. But anyway, there was some grumbling about what we have in our hamlet, and that it could be better, and that we hadn't realized the full potential of the hamlet.
Okay.
So this is a tool to get us to help us realize that full potential.
So
So,
then,
if I may, make a suggestion. I added a star right here, which is a note,
Yep.
add Bob Kay's sentiment, so kind of from your
Uh-huh.
your email,
And I think the other sentiment is what I heard,
is
certainly.
it Greg's or is it yours?
That emails all of us.
Those are another, yeah,
Right, so I will read through this,
yep.
and I will extract from it.
And I think the other overriding theme from us is that,
Is it in here or no?
I think so, yeah, because it's
Okay.
Tom and Dick echoed it, and then, you know, Greg really gave it some reality. I think the other issue is that the scope itself should be one that's realistic and helpful. And this whole process of building out and doing arithmetic, let's not get trapped in that. Let's not go down that route. Instead, do what we have to do under seeker, but at the same token, let's make this a realistic tool and something that we can really use and developers can use. I mean, if we go with them and say GEIS and says, well, you know, if you put in your 300 units or 3,000 units, whatever it is, we have X.
We have to go down to 1,500 now.
Yeah,
That's
or
the
whatever
new-
it might be. It seems to me it may not be that helpful, and then we may have to do additional work when someone comes in with an individual project because the study that we have in the GEIS is defective and deficient. Hopefully not. So if we do it this way,
Not.
Well,
I mean,
It's
listen,
not deficient.
absolutely.
It just is, it could not possibly
it's unrealistic.
deal with all unforeseen probabilities.
Or realistic ones. You know,
In other words, defective.
yeah. So anyway,
Okay,
I'm-
so let's talk about process for a moment because your comments are due by noon on Friday.
I have a cover memo, still question. And I guess it's really for Bob. In the cover memo, you know, we've talked about this a lot, about something for the public being done on public land, right? I know we've talked about it, I don't know if everybody's talked about it. Is that something we want to say in our cover memo to the town board, that we feel that, you know, there should be a public something on that public land whenever
should be
the
reserved
town-
for public, yeah.
Or at least a portion of it, you know,
Yes.
maybe not the whole thing, but something of that land.
I agree with you. Yeah, I
You
think
know,
that we've been,
We've been
the
talking.
three of us on that committee have been talking about it,
Yeah.
certainly, a lot.
Mhm.
And so there was, and Tom articulated that
Tom
in his
articulated-
notes.
Right.
Yes, that's a very good point, I think,
That it's
Greg.
the opportunity, we may have the opportunity here for the public, the town to do something on public land that developers typically don't want to do because there's nothing in it for them.
So,
Yep, that whole theme that you and Tom talked about, yeah, that's really good.
okay, so I've added that. Is that in here as well?
Yeah,
Yeah,
basically, the public entities will
benefit?
do the things that the private can't do.
Like public benefit?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like a
exactly.
parking garage, a community center, indoor
That's it.
pool.
Yep,
That's how these things
what's that?
Nothing. So let's talk about process.
Process. We have got your
Process.
comments in by Friday.
I have to give you comment, revise the cover letter, make further edits to the scope. Do you want to authorize Bob to review it?
I'm okay
So
with
that I
Bob.
can finalize it in time for a Friday by noon submission.
I'm okay with that.
Yep.
I know, he's gonna hand me something. It's okay, it's good.
Milk, eggs?
That's what I gotta get tonight, I don't know, just remind me.
Lots of vodka.
So I will work on this tomorrow, Bob, and get you a draft so that you at least have a day to
Yeah, great,
edit it.
thank you, good.
And then, may I also make a request, if a board member is not going to be able to make a meeting, that my office be made aware of that. We
Oh,
do-
you didn't know?
No, we had no idea.
Oh, I guess, okay.
And it's important for us to know, because in the event that it's more than one member, we would have to cancel the meeting,
Oh,
post the meeting,
no, I was aware of that, yeah.
canceled. Yeah, so if
Yep.
we're not on your email chain, chances are we don't know.
Okay. Yep,
Okay, thank you for your comments.
good. I think we're set, right? Okay, is there a motion to close the meeting?
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.